People who live in the Sahara can go their entire lives without bathing in water, and yet their bodies do not rot, collapse, or fall into constant disease. What seems impossible at first glance slowly begins to make sense when you look closer at how cleanliness is redefined under heat and scarcity. In a land where every drop matters, hygiene becomes quieter, drier, and far more deliberate than anything modern comfort has taught us. Tonight, you are invited to walk slowly into that world and witness how survival reshapes the meaning of being clean. So, before you feel comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel, only if your heart truly wants to. If you do like it, leave a little comment letting me know what time it is where you are. Now, dim the lights. Adjust the pillow to fit your head. Maybe turn on a fan to create a relaxing atmosphere. And let's begin this journey together tonight. If a person were to pause at the edge of the Sahara long enough before moving or speaking, the heat would explain everything without words. It does not rush. It settles in layers, pressing against the skin until the body becomes aware of every breath it takes. The sun is not simply overhead. It surrounds, reflects, and returns from the ground below, turning open space into something heavy and exacting. In this environment, nothing is taken lightly, especially not water. The Sahara is among the driest regions on Earth, but dryness alone does not describe it fully. What defines this land is endurance without relief. Rain does not arrive regularly enough to shape habits. Rivers do not carve daily routines. Moisture, when it appears, is brief and easily lost. Life continues anyway, but only by learning what can be sacrificed and what cannot. Comfort is among the first things to go. For many outsiders, the absence of water suggests disorder. Cleanliness is often imagined as a luxury that disappears when resources vanish. Without water, the assumption is that bodies decay, illness spreads, and hygiene collapses. Yet this assumption does not hold here. People live, work, and age in the Sahara without the constant presence of water, and they do so without surrendering their health. Cleanliness does not vanish, it changes form. In places where water flows freely, hygiene is expensive. It spills over skin, drains away, and is replaced again and again. In the Sahara, water is reduced to its most essential role. It is reserved for drinking first, because survival depends on it. Every other use must justify itself. Washing the body for comfort cannot compete with the need to keep organs functioning under extreme heat. This priority shapes thinking from an early age. Children grow up understanding that thirst is more dangerous than dirt. They learn that sweat is not the enemy, but dehydration is. A dusty body can endure, a dry mouth cannot. These lessons are not taught formally. They are absorbed through observation, through watching adults move slowly, store water carefully, and resist the urge to waste even a small amount. Hygiene, under these conditions, is not about freshness, it is about prevention. The goal is not to feel clean, but to avoid harm. Skin must not crack in the sun, wounds must not fester, hands must not carry illness into the body. These are the concerns that define cleanliness here. Anything beyond that is unnecessary. The heat itself plays a role. In the Sahara, moisture rarely lingers. Sweat evaporates quickly, leaving little opportunity for bacteria to thrive. The air strips the dampness from the skin almost immediately. While this dryness is uncomfortable, it is also protective. Many infections that rely on warm, moist conditions struggle to survive in such an environment. What seems hostile becomes a quiet defense. This does not mean life is easy. Heat exhausts the body, slows movement, and demands caution. People learn to cover their skin, not to trap heat, but to control it. Shade becomes a form of hygiene. Avoiding direct sunlight is as important as managing dirt. By reducing sweat, the body conserves moisture and minimizes irritation. Hygiene becomes embedded in clothing choices rather than washing rituals. In this setting, cleanliness is constant but invisible. There are no dramatic acts of bathing. There is no daily ritual of water poured over the body. Instead, there is attention. Feet are checked for sores caused by hot sand. Skin is monitored for dryness that could lead to cracks. Hair is arranged to prevent the buildup of sweat near the scalp. These small actions replace what water cannot provide. To someone unfamiliar with this environment, such practices may appear insufficient. They do not resemble modern habits. There is no scent of soap, no visible shine of washed skin. Yet health does not depend on appearance here. A body covered in dust may still be protected. A body stripped repeatedly with water might not survive as long. Water scarcity forces clarity. It removes unnecessary actions and exposes what truly matters. Cleanliness becomes a matter of restraint. The body is not scrubbed aggressively. Oils are not washed away without reason. The skin is treated as a barrier that must be preserved, not stripped. In this way, hygiene aligns closely with survival. The sun remains present throughout all of this. It governs when people move, when they rest, and how long they stay exposed. Hygiene adapts to this rhythm. Activities that generate sweat are limited during peak heat. Shade is used strategically. The body is kept as stable as possible because instability invites illness. This way of life does not emerge from theory. It develops slowly, over generations, shaped by what fails and what endures. Practices that lead to illness disappear. Methods that protect the body remain. Over time, hygiene becomes inseparable from the landscape itself. In the Sahara, being clean does not mean being washed. It means being intact. It means avoiding infection, preserving moisture, and respecting the limits imposed by the sun. The heat does not eliminate hygiene. It defines it. The burning sun forces cleanliness, to abandon comfort and focus only on survival. Once water is removed from daily routines, the meaning of being clean begins to shift in ways that feel unfamiliar and unsettling. And when washing disappears entirely, another method quietly takes its place, one that looks ordinary enough to be overlooked. Cleanliness in the Sahara does not begin with washing. It begins with judgment. Every action involving the body is measured against one question only. Does this reduce the chance of illness, or does it increase it? Without water to fall back on, the idea of being clean is stripped of ritual and appearance. What remains is function. In many places, cleanliness is something felt immediately. Water runs over skin, soap creates foam, and the body emerges changed. The sensation itself becomes proof. In the desert, that sensation is absent. There is no moment when the body feels freshly washed. Instead, cleanliness is something confirmed over time. A clean body does not become infected. Clean hands are hands that do not bring sickness to the mouth. Clean skin is skin that holds together under heat and wind. Not washing with water does not signal neglect here. It signals restraint. Water that cannot be trusted to drink is never trusted for the body. Small cuts, insect bites, and abrasions are common in desert life. Introducing unclean water to these openings would invite harm. What looks hygienic elsewhere becomes dangerous in this setting. Because of this, cleanliness is defined negatively rather than positively. It is not about adding something, but about avoiding outcomes. No fever, no swelling, no spreading rash. These absences are the signs that matter. Dust on the skin does not register as failure. Sweat does not cause alarm. Even smell, which carries heavy judgment in modern societies, is treated with indifference unless it signals decay or infection. This approach requires constant attention. The body is observed closely, not scrubbed aggressively. Skin is checked for cracks that could open in the sun. Feet are examined because heat and friction can cause wounds that worsen quickly. Hair is managed to prevent the buildup of sweat that might irritate the scalp. These actions replace bathing. They do not feel cleansing, but they are effective. Modern cleanliness often aims for removal. Oils are stripped away, scent is erased, and surfaces are left neutral. In the Sahara, removal is selective. The body's own oils are not enemies. They protect against dryness and prevent the skin from splitting. Removing them would leave the body exposed to the environment rather than shielded from it. This difference is subtle but essential. Overcleaning would cause harm here. Skin without its natural barrier would suffer under heat and wind. Cracks would appear, inviting infection. The absence of water forces an understanding that cleanliness is not about purity, but about balance. The desert also reorders how smell is understood. In damp environments, odor often accompanies bacterial growth. In extreme dryness, this link weakens. Sweat dries quickly. Moisture does not linger long enough to encourage the same processes. A body may carry scent without carrying disease. Smell becomes a social concern at most, not a medical one. Children learn this early. They are not taught to associate dirt with danger automatically. They are taught to notice pain, swelling, and heat in the skin. Cleanliness becomes observational rather than ceremonial. There is no scheduled washing. There is only awareness. This awareness replaces routine. Instead of daily bathing, there is daily adjustment. Clothing is arranged to reduce friction. Shade is used to limit sweat. Movement is timed to avoid peak heat. Hygiene becomes part of behavior rather than a separate act. From the outside, this system looks incomplete. Without visible washing, it is easy to assume that something essential is missing. Yet widespread illness would quickly reveal such a failure. The fact that life continues without constant infection suggests that the system functions as intended. Cleanliness here is closely tied to dryness. Dryness limits microbial growth. Dry clothing prevents irritation. Dry wounds heal faster. What feels harsh elsewhere becomes protective here. The desert turns discomfort into defense. This redefinition also removes moral weight from cleanliness. Being clean is not a sign of discipline or virtue. It is simply a state of not being harmed. There is no pride attached to it. There is no display. Cleanliness exists quietly, noticed only when it fails. In societies with abundant water, cleanliness often becomes symbolic. It marks social status, respectability, and self-control. In the Sahara, symbolism disappears. There is no water to support it. Cleanliness is reduced to its most practical form. This practical definition is not born from theory. It emerges from failure. Methods that cause illness disappear. Practices that protect the body remain. Over generations, this process leaves behind a system that appears minimal but is deeply refined. The absence of water exposes assumptions carried from wetter lands. It reveals how much of modern hygiene depends on excess rather than necessity. When that excess is removed, cleanliness does not vanish. It adapts. The Sahara does not deny the importance of being clean. It narrows its meaning. Clean does not mean washed. It means safe. It means intact. It means a body that can continue under the sun without breaking down. Once this definition is accepted, other habits begin to shift as well. Washing stops being central. Other materials, other methods, begin to matter. What replaces water is not dramatic or exotic. It is ordinary, available, and easily overlooked. In the Sahara, cleanliness is no longer about washing, but about avoiding harm and preserving the body. When water is removed from the definition, attention turns toward dryness, restraint, and constant observation. And once washing disappears, an unlikely substitute quietly takes its place, one that feels almost too simple to notice. In the Sahara, comfort is not ignored by accident. It is deliberately set aside. Every habit that survives here does so because it serves one purpose above all others: keeping the body alive under conditions that do not forgive waste. Water stands at the center of this calculation. It is never assumed, never taken lightly, and never used without reason. From this single fact, every other decision follows. Water is for drinking first. This rule is not debated or questioned. It is repeated quietly through daily behavior rather than instruction. Containers are guarded, portions are measured. Even when thirst is not immediate, water is saved for the moment when it will be. Using it for comfort, even briefly, would mean gambling with survival later. In this environment, that gamble is rarely worth taking. Because of this, hygiene cannot rely on abundance. Washing the body with water, even sparingly, would reduce reserves needed to endure long hours of heat and movement. The body can tolerate dust. It cannot tolerate dehydration. This simple hierarchy reshapes priorities completely. Cleanliness becomes secondary to hydration, and comfort becomes negotiable. This does not mean hygiene is abandoned. It means it must be reimagined. When water is removed from the equation, creativity takes its place. People do not ask how to feel comfortable. They ask how to avoid harm. Every method that develops is measured against that standard. The first sacrifice is the sensation of freshness. There is no moment of relief where heat is washed away. Sweat dries on the skin and leaves behind salt. Dust settles and stays until it irritates enough to be brushed aside. These sensations are accepted as normal. Discomfort is expected. It is not treated as a problem that needs solving, only as a condition that must be endured. This acceptance is not passive. It is learned. Children grow up understanding that comfort is temporary and survival is continuous. They watch adults resist the urge to use water for washing, even when heat makes the body ache. They learn that endurance is quieter than relief, but more reliable. Hygiene under these conditions becomes inventive rather than indulgent. When water cannot be used, other materials are explored. Dry substances replace liquid ones. Air replaces rinsing. Sun replaces heat from baths. The environment itself becomes part of the solution. The body is managed rather than refreshed. Sweat is controlled through clothing and timing rather than removed through washing. Activities are arranged to minimize excessive moisture on the skin. Shade is treated as a hygienic tool, not merely a comfort. By reducing sweat, the body conserves water and lowers irritation at the same time. This approach requires patience. Nothing happens quickly. There is no immediate reward. Cleanliness is not felt. It is maintained. The absence of infection, the lack of sores, and the ability to keep moving day after day become the signs that the system works. Modern life often treats comfort as a baseline. When discomfort appears, it is solved immediately with resources. In the Sahara, discomfort is part of the baseline. What matters is whether the body continues to function. As long as it does, the method is considered successful. This mindset reshapes values. Cleanliness is no longer something that provides pleasure. It is something that prevents disaster. The body does not need to feel good to survive. It needs to remain intact. This distinction is subtle but powerful. By prioritizing survival, people learn to tolerate conditions that would feel unacceptable elsewhere. Dry skin, persistent dust, and lingering heat are not failures of hygiene. There is evidence that water has been used wisely. The trade-off is clear and accepted. This acceptance also creates consistency. Habits do not change with mood or convenience. They are steady, repeated, and predictable. Water is always saved. Comfort is always secondary. Hygiene always adapts rather than demands. What may appear as deprivation from the outside is, from within, a form of discipline shaped by necessity. There is no resentment toward the lack of water. It is simply a fact of life. Complaining does not produce rain. Adjusting behavior does. The body itself adapts over time. Skin becomes more resilient. Sensitivity to discomfort changes. What once felt unbearable becomes familiar. This adaptation reinforces the system. The less the body expects comfort, the easier it becomes to maintain survival-focused habits. Hygiene follows this same pattern. Methods that rely on comfort fade away. Methods that preserve function remain. Over generations, this process strips hygiene of excess and leaves behind only what is essential. This does not create a harsh existence without care. It creates a careful existence without waste. Attention replaces indulgence. Observation replaces routine. The body is respected for its limits, rather than forced into artificial standards. In this way, survival does not oppose hygiene. It defines it. Cleanliness becomes a tool, not a luxury. It exists to support endurance, not pleasure. Once comfort is no longer the goal, space opens for other solutions to emerge. Materials that would seem unsuitable elsewhere become valuable. Simple actions replace elaborate rituals. What remains is quiet, efficient, and easily overlooked. In the Sahara, hygiene exists not to provide comfort, but to support survival under constant pressure. When every drop of water is reserved for life, cleanliness is forced to find another path. In that space where comfort disappears, an unexpected method begins to emerge, shaped entirely by necessity. Using sand in place of water does not begin as a belief, it begins as a response. When the body is covered in sweat and dust, and water cannot be spared, something else must be used. In the Sahara, that something is always close at hand. Dry sand becomes a tool, not because it is ideal, but because it is available, reliable, and does not threaten survival. The idea of bathing without water feels contradictory to many modern minds. Bathing is imagined as a process of rinsing, of letting liquid carry dirt away. Sand does not flow, it stays where it touches. Yet this very quality makes it useful in a dry environment. Sand absorbs moisture. It clings to sweat and oil, lifting them away from the skin when brushed aside. What remains is not freshness, but relief. Dry sand is used carefully. It is not rubbed harshly or pressed into the skin. Gentle movements are enough. The goal is not to scrub, but to absorb. Sweat that would otherwise sit on the body and cause irritation is drawn out. Fine dust that sticks to damp skin is removed along with it. The body becomes drier, calmer, and less inflamed. This practice does not aim to make the skin spotless. It aims to make it stable. In extreme heat, moisture trapped against the body causes problems. It softens the skin, increases friction, and encourages sores. By removing moisture rather than dirt alone, sand reduces these risks. What might appear primitive is, in fact, precise. Dry bathing becomes a regular habit because it works. It does not require preparation. It does not depend on clean water sources. It can be done quickly, anywhere, without waste. For people who move frequently or live far from wells, this reliability matters more than comfort. Sand is also selective. It absorbs oils and sweat without stripping the skin completely. Unlike repeated washing with water, which can remove protective layers, sand leaves enough behind to keep the skin resilient. The balance is subtle, learned through experience rather than instruction. Not all sand is used. Fine, dry sand is preferred. Damp sand is avoided, as moisture defeats the purpose. Sand contaminated with waste or sharp particles is also avoided. Over time, people learn to recognize what works and what does not. Hygiene here is not careless, it is attentive. Dry bathing is not limited to the torso. Limbs, feet, and areas prone to sweat are treated the same way. Feet, in particular, receive careful attention. Hot sand and long walks create blisters and cracks easily. Keeping feet dry reduces friction and prevents wounds from worsening. In this context, sand is protective rather than abrasive. The process is quiet and unremarkable. There is no ceremony, no one watches. It is done as needed, often more than once a day during extreme heat. The simplicity of the method makes it easy to repeat. This repetition is what maintains its effectiveness. To an outsider, the idea of sand being cleaner than water seems illogical. Yet in the Sahara, water is often scarce and unreliable. Water that cannot be trusted to drink cannot be trusted for the body. Using such water would introduce bacteria into small cuts and irritations. In comparison, clean, dry sand poses fewer risks. This comparison reshapes priorities. A thin layer of dust on the skin is harmless. Contaminated water is not. The choice becomes clear. Sand does not promise comfort, but it avoids danger. In an environment where danger accumulates quietly, this matters. Dry bathing also fits into the broader rhythm of desert life. It does not interrupt daily activities. It can be done during rest periods, in shade, or before sleep. It does not require privacy or infrastructure. Hygiene adapts to movement rather than demanding stillness. Over time, the body responds. Skin becomes less reactive. Sweat dries faster. Irritation decreases. What began as a compromise becomes a system. The body learns to exist without expecting relief through water. This adaptation reinforces the practice. The absence of water also removes excess. There is no temptation to overclean, no repeated washing that weakens the skin. Hygiene becomes efficient by necessity. Only what serves survival remains. This method does not replace all forms of cleaning. It complements other practices. It works alongside clothing choices, shade, and timing. Together, these elements create a form of hygiene that is distributed rather than concentrated in one act. The idea that sand can clean feels unsettling because it challenges assumptions. Cleanliness is often imagined as something that looks clean. Sand leaves traces. It does not erase evidence of the environment. Yet health does not depend on appearances here. It depends on the function. In this setting, sand is not dirt. It is a tool. It absorbs what needs to be removed and leaves behind what protects. The distinction is subtle, but essential. Hygiene is no longer about purity. It is about control. The practice persists because it is dependable. When water disappears, sand remains. When conditions worsen, sand does not fail. This reliability gives it value beyond comfort. By accepting sand as a bathing medium, people accept discomfort as a condition rather than a problem. The body adjusts. Expectations shift. What once felt insufficient becomes normal. This quiet acceptance is what allows the system to endure. There is no search for better alternatives that require more resources. There is only refinement of what is already available. In the Sahara, dry sand replaces water as a means of keeping the body stable and free from irritation. When moisture becomes the greater threat, removing it matters more than washing away dust. From this simple practice, another unexpected substance begins to appear, one shaped by fire rather than heat. Using sand as a towel is not a single act performed at a fixed time of day. It is a repeated adjustment, woven quietly into the rhythm of desert life. When water is unavailable and sweat returns again and again under the sun, the body must be managed continuously rather than reset through washing. Sand allows this management without demanding rest, privacy, or resources. The function of sand lies in its ability to absorb. Sweat does not simply sit on the skin in the Sahara. It evaporates quickly, leaving behind salt and oil that cling to the body. These residues attract fine dust and increase friction, especially in areas where skin moves against skin or fabric. Left unattended, this mixture causes irritation and sores. Sand interrupts this process. Fine, dry sand is applied gently to the surface of the skin. It is not pressed, scraped, or rubbed aggressively. The movement is slow and light, more like dusting than scrubbing. The sand absorbs oil and remaining moisture, lifting them away when brushed aside. What is removed is not life from the skin, but excess that would otherwise cause harm. This gentleness is essential. Harsh rubbing would damage the skin, creating openings for infection. The goal is stability, not purity. The body is treated as something to be preserved, not stripped clean. Over time, this careful approach becomes instinctive. Hands learn the pressure required. Skin signals when enough has been done. Because sand does not rely on water, the process can be repeated as often as needed. After long walks, after periods of work, or before rest, the same simple action is used again. There is no concern about wasting resources. Hygiene becomes flexible rather than scheduled. This flexibility matters in extreme heat. The body's condition can change quickly. Sweat may increase suddenly, or irritation may begin without warning. Waiting for a single bathing moment would allow problems to develop. Sand allows immediate response. The body is adjusted as conditions demand. Using sand as a cloth also avoids one of the hidden dangers of water-based cleaning in harsh environments. Repeated washing with limited water often leads to incomplete drying. Moisture trapped in folds of skin or fabric becomes a source of irritation and infection. Sand leaves the skin dry almost instantly. What remains evaporates quickly under the sun. Over time, this dryness creates consistency. The skin becomes less reactive. Chafing decreases. Small irritations resolve rather than worsen. These outcomes reinforce the practice. What works remains. What fails disappears. This method also aligns with the desert's emphasis on movement. Life here often involves travel, herding, or work far from shelter. Carrying water for washing would be impractical. Sand requires no transport. It is available everywhere, requiring only attention and care. The act itself is unremarkable. There is no sense of ritual or importance. It is done quietly, without drawing attention. Hygiene does not announce itself. It exists in the background, supporting daily life rather than interrupting it. For those unfamiliar with the environment, the idea of cleaning with sand feels incomplete. Sand is commonly associated with dirt rather than cleanliness. Yet this association comes from environments where water removes sand easily. In the Sahara, sand is constant. Treating it as the enemy would be futile. Instead, it is incorporated into solutions. This incorporation reflects a broader principle. Desert hygiene does not attempt to erase the environment from the body. It manages interaction with it. The goal is not separation, but balance. Sand is allowed to touch the skin, but not remain where it causes harm. Repeated use throughout the day also changes how the body feels. There is no sharp contrast between dirty and clean. The body exists in a steady state. It does not swing between extremes of sweat and washing. This stability reduces stress on the skin and conserves energy. Energy conservation is as important as water conservation. Vigorous washing would require effort and rest afterward. Gentle sand wiping requires little strength. It fits naturally into pauses in movement or moments of shade. Hygiene does not compete with survival tasks. It supports them. This approach also removes expectation. There is no moment of relief promised by cleanliness. The body is not refreshed, it is maintained. This distinction shapes how discomfort is perceived. Discomfort becomes information rather than failure. It signals when adjustment is needed, not when indulgence is required. Over generations, this practice becomes refined. People learn which areas need more attention and which require less. They recognize signs of overuse and underuse. Hygiene becomes a form of knowledge passed through observation rather than instruction. The simplicity of the method contributes to its endurance. There are no tools to break, no materials to run out. Sand does not spoil or become unavailable. It does not depend on trade or preparation. Its reliability gives it value beyond comfort. In this system, cleanliness is continuous rather than episodic. The body is never fully reset. It is constantly adjusted. This continuous care prevents small issues from becoming serious problems. It replaces dramatic solutions with quiet maintenance. From the outside, this may appear insufficient. From within, it is enough. The absence of water does not lead to neglect. It leads to attentiveness. Every movement of the hand across the skin is deliberate, shaped by experience rather than habit. The practice also reinforces acceptance. The body is allowed to exist as it is, marked by the environment but not harmed by it. Cleanliness no longer aims to remove all traces of place. It aims to make living in that place possible. This way of thinking extends beyond hygiene. It reflects how desert life approaches most challenges. When resources are limited, solutions must be simple, repeatable, and gentle. Sand, used as a cloth, meets these requirements quietly. In the Sahara, sand functions as a dry cloth, absorbing sweat and oil without harming the skin. Because it can be used repeatedly, hygiene becomes continuous, rather than confined to a single moment. As this quiet method settles into daily life, another unlikely substance begins to play a role, one born from fire rather than earth. Ash enters desert hygiene without ceremony. It is not introduced as a remedy or praised as a discovery. It appears naturally, as a byproduct of daily life, when cooking fires die down and heat leaves behind a pale residue. In an environment where nothing is wasted, ash does not remain on the ground without purpose. It is observed, tested quietly, and folded into routine where it proves useful. Not all ash is treated the same. Ash from clean, dry shrubs is preferred, gathered after fires that burned without smoke or contamination. The source matters. Wood that is free from waste and decay produces ash that is light, fine, and predictable. Over time, people learn to recognize what is suitable and what is not. This knowledge is practical, passed through repetition rather than instruction. Ash is valued for what it does without water. When rubbed lightly on the skin, it absorbs moisture and oil, much like sand, but it also carries a mild alkaline quality. This quality discourages the growth of certain microorganisms. It does not sterilize, it does not promise purity. It reduces risk quietly, enough to matter. Hands are often the first place ash is applied. In desert life, hands move constantly between tasks, touching animals, tools, and food. Without water, they cannot be rinsed clean in the conventional sense. Ash offers a way to interrupt transfer. A small amount is rubbed between the palms, worked into creases, then brushed away. What remains is dryness rather than residue. This dryness is important. Moist hands collect dirt and carry it easily. Dry hands are less likely to transfer contaminants. Ash removes what needs to be removed and leaves the skin intact. There is no lingering dampness to invite irritation or cracking. The balance is subtle and learned through experience. Feet receive similar attention. Long hours of walking in the heat create sweat and friction. Ash is used to keep the skin dry, reducing the chance of blisters and sores. Applied lightly and brushed off, it leaves behind a surface less prone to damage. In this context, ash becomes preventive rather than reactive. The use of ash extends to areas where moisture poses a greater risk. In the absence of water, these areas cannot be washed repeatedly. Ash provides a way to manage hygiene without introducing contamination. Its use is careful and restrained. Too much would irritate the skin. Too little would be ineffective. The correct amount is learned, not measured. This restraint reflects a broader pattern. Desert hygiene rarely relies on excess. Methods are applied only where needed, only as much as needed. Ash is not treated as a cure-all. It is one tool among many, used when conditions call for it. There is no attempt to mask, smell, or create the sensation of cleanliness. Ash does not perfume the body. It does not create comfort, it addresses risk. This focus keeps the practice grounded. Cleanliness remains functional rather than symbolic. Ash also fits naturally into the rhythm of daily life. Fires are already part of cooking and warmth. Their residue does not require special preparation. Hygiene does not demand additional resources. It emerges from what already exists. This efficiency ensures consistency. Practices that require extra effort rarely endure here. From the outside, the idea of cleaning with ash may seem harsh. Ash is associated with waste, with what remains after something is consumed. Yet in the desert, this association shifts. Ash is light, dry, and controlled. It does not cling like mud or spread like water. It can be applied precisely and removed easily. The skin responds over time. Regular, gentle use reduces moisture-related irritation. Small abrasions are less likely to worsen. The absence of water prevents softening of the skin that would otherwise lead to cracking under heat and movement. What seems crude reveals itself as careful. This method also avoids one of the quiet dangers of water use in arid environments. Scarce water is often reused or stored for long periods. Its quality cannot always be trusted. Applying such water to sensitive areas would increase risk rather than reduce it. Ash avoids this entirely. It introduces no external moisture and carries minimal contamination when sourced properly. The practice persists because it works quietly. There are no dramatic outcomes, no immediate sensations of relief. Instead, there is continuity. The body remains stable. Problems do not escalate. In an environment where escalation can be fatal, this stability matters. Ash does not replace attention. It complements it. Skin is still observed. Irritation is still monitored. Ash is used when it supports balance and avoided when it does not. Hygiene remains adaptive rather than fixed. Over generations, the method becomes normalized. It is not discussed or defended. It simply exists as part of daily life. Children see it used and adopt it without question. There is no contrast to draw attention to it. It is not an alternative. It is ordinary. This ordinariness is what allows it to endure. Practices that attract attention often invite criticism or change. Ash remains unnoticed because it does not challenge expectations within its context. It fits seamlessly into a life already shaped by scarcity and heat. The desert does not encourage idealism. It rewards what functions. Ash functions. It dries, reduces risk, and requires nothing beyond what is already present. In this way, it becomes a quiet substitute for soap, without claiming to be one. Cleanliness here is cumulative. Sand removes sweat, ash reduces risk, clothing and shade limit exposure. Each element contributes a small amount. Together, they create a system that sustains life without water. This system does not promise comfort. It promises continuity. The body is not refreshed. It is preserved. This preservation is enough. As ash settles into routine, it opens space for other materials to be considered. When one method proves effective, attention turns to what else might support the body without water. The process continues, slow and unremarkable, shaped entirely by necessity. In the Sahara, ash replaces soap by drying the skin and quietly reducing risk without water. When moisture turns into a threat, even the remnants of fire find a role in daily care. With this practice becoming routine, another protective layer starts to matter, one drawn not from the ground but from animals. Animal fat enters desert hygiene quietly, without explanation or ceremony. It is not introduced as a comfort nor as a luxury. It appears as a thin layer, applied before exposure, understood through experience rather than theory. In an environment where the sun strips moisture from the body and wind carries abrasive dust, the skin requires something that does not evaporate, something that stays. The application is restrained. A small amount is warmed between the hands and spread lightly over exposed areas. There is no attempt to coat the body completely. Too much would trap heat and attract grit. Too little would fail to protect. The correct balance is learned over time, through discomfort and adjustment rather than instruction. This thin layer performs several functions at once. It seals the skin against rapid moisture loss, slowing evaporation caused by heat and wind. It fills tiny cracks before they widen, preventing the splitting that leads to pain and infection. It also creates a surface that dust cannot cling to easily. Particles brush away instead of embedding themselves into damp skin. The protection is subtle. There is no immediate sensation of relief. The body does not feel cooler or refreshed. Instead, it feels steadier. Skin remains flexible rather than brittle. Movement causes less friction. Over hours of exposure, the difference becomes clear. Where unprotected skin tightens and burns, protected skin endures. Animal fat also moderates temperature quietly. It does not cool the body, but it reduces the sharp fluctuations that exhaust it. By limiting moisture loss, it helps the skin maintain a more stable surface temperature. This stability reduces stress on the body during long periods under the sun. The choice of fat matters. Fats rendered cleanly, free from impurities, are preferred. Those with strong odors or contaminants are avoided. Over generations, people learn which sources perform best. This knowledge is practical, shaped by outcomes rather than rules. The use of fat challenges common assumptions about cleanliness. In many places, oil on the skin is seen as something to remove. Here, it is something to preserve. Removing it would expose the body to the environment without defense. Cleanliness is not equated with dryness alone, but with resilience. This practice also reflects an understanding of the skin as a barrier rather than a surface. The skin's role is not to appear clean, but to protect what lies beneath. Fat supports this role by reinforcing the skin's natural function instead of stripping it away. The application is often done before leaving the shelter, before walking into open heat. It becomes part of preparation, not repair. Waiting until damage appears would be too late. Prevention remains the guiding principle. This preventive approach reduces the need for intervention later. Skin that remains intact requires less attention. There are fewer sores to manage, fewer irritations to monitor. The body expends less energy on healing and more on movement and survival. Animal fat also integrates well with other practices. Sand removes excess moisture. Ash reduces risk in sensitive areas. Clothing limits direct exposure. Fat completes this system by addressing what remains. Each method covers a different aspect. Together, they form a continuous layer of care. The method persists because it does not depend on abundance. Fat is a byproduct of food preparation. It does not require separate resources. Using it for skincare does not compete with survival needs. This efficiency ensures its place in daily life. From the outside, the idea of coating the skin with fat may seem uncomfortable or unclean. Yet discomfort here is measured differently. The absence of cracking, bleeding, and infection outweighs the presence of a thin, protective layer. Appearance yields to function without debate. The body adapts to this practice over time. Skin becomes accustomed to the layer, responding with fewer reactions. The sensation of oiliness fades into familiarity. What once felt strange becomes normal. This normalization is important. Practices that feel foreign or unpleasant rarely endure. Animal fat remains because it proves itself quietly, day after day, under the same unforgiving conditions. The desert rewards what lasts. Methods that offer momentary comfort but create long-term problems disappear. Methods that preserve function without demanding excess remain. Animal fat falls into the latter category. Its use also reflects a broader acceptance of the environment. Rather than attempting to isolate the body completely from heat and dust, the goal is to negotiate with them. The body is shielded, not separated. This negotiation requires humility rather than control. There is no belief that this practice makes life easy. It simply makes it possible. The skin does not escape the desert. It survives within it. This distinction shapes expectations and behavior. Over time, the thin layer of fat becomes invisible. It is not discussed or emphasized. It is applied when needed and forgotten afterward. Hygiene does not demand attention. It supports life quietly. As with other desert practices, this method relies on moderation. Excess would cause harm. Absence would cause harm. Balance sustains. This balance reflects the central logic of desert hygiene. Nothing is done for comfort alone. Everything serves survival first. Animal fat earns its place by protecting the body, where water and shade cannot fully do so. In the Sahara, a thin layer of animal fat strengthens the skin against heat, wind, and dust. By preventing cracks and moisture loss, the body remains steadier under constant exposure. Once the skin is sealed in this way, attention turns to another defense, one woven rather than applied. Clothing in the Sahara is not chosen to display the body or to escape heat through exposure. It is chosen to create distance. Long garments cover arms, legs, neck, and sometimes even the face, forming a soft barrier between skin and environment. This barrier does not block the sun entirely. It filters it. It does not stop the heat. It manages it. Covering the body may seem counterintuitive in intense sun. In many places, less fabric means relief. In the desert, exposed skin absorbs heat directly, dries too quickly, and becomes vulnerable. Fabric interrupts this process. It casts a constant shadow over the skin, reducing direct radiation and slowing moisture loss. The shade it provides is small but continuous, and continuity matters. Loose, long clothing allows air to move without stripping the body. Heat escapes gradually rather than violently. Sweat evaporates at a controlled pace instead of vanishing instantly. This moderation prevents the sharp cycle of sweating and dehydration that exhausts the body. Hygiene benefits quietly from this balance. By keeping skin in the shade, clothing reduces irritation. Dust carried by wind strikes fabric first rather than flesh. What reaches the body has lost some of its force. Friction decreases. Small abrasions are less likely to form. The skin remains intact longer, which reduces the need for later care. This barrier also controls sweat. When skin is shielded from direct sunlight, it produces less moisture. Less moisture means fewer residues left behind. Salt and oil do not accumulate as quickly. Odor, often linked to moisture rather than dirt, becomes less pronounced. Cleanliness here is achieved by prevention rather than removal. Fabric choice matters. Materials that breathe without clinging are preferred. Tight clothing traps heat and moisture, defeating the purpose. Loose layers create space for air to circulate, allowing the body to regulate itself more effectively. The goal is not insulation, but moderation. Over time, this approach reshapes expectations. Clothing is no longer seen as something that increases heat. It becomes a tool for controlling it. The body feels steadier beneath layers than it would under direct exposure. This steadiness supports endurance, which supports survival. Clothing also reduces the need for frequent cleaning of the body. By intercepting dust and sweat, it takes on the role of first contact. Fabric can be shaken out, brushed, or aired without water. The skin beneath remains calmer and less reactive. Hygiene shifts outward, from body to garment. This shift matters where water is scarce. Washing clothes with water would compete with drinking needs. Instead, clothes are maintained through air, movement, and time. Sunlight dries them. Wind carries away fine particles. Fabric becomes part of the hygienic system without demanding resources. The barrier created by clothing is not rigid. It adapts with movement. Sleeves are adjusted, layers added or removed slightly, depending on conditions. This flexibility allows constant fine-tuning. The body remains covered without feeling trapped. There is no emphasis on uniformity. Styles vary, but the principles remain. Coverage, looseness, and breathability take priority. These choices are not aesthetic. They are practical responses refined over generations. This approach also reduces the psychological burden of heat. Direct sun on bare skin creates urgency. Covered skin experiences heat as pressure rather than attack. The mind remains calmer. Calmness supports attention, and attention supports hygiene. From an external perspective, heavy clothing in the heat appears uncomfortable. From within, uncovered skin feels harsher. The comparison reveals how assumptions change with the environment. Comfort is defined by outcome, not sensation. By reducing sweat and irritation, clothing indirectly reduces odor. Odor is not treated as a primary concern, but its reduction signals stability. When the body remains dry and intact, smell does not escalate into a problem. Hygiene maintains itself quietly. The barrier also protects areas often neglected. Neck, shoulders, and scalp are shielded from prolonged exposure. These areas, when damaged, heal slowly and cause persistent discomfort. Clothing prevents these issues before they begin. This preventive role aligns with the broader desert approach. Problems are avoided rather than corrected. Resources are conserved. Effort is minimized. Clothing, once chosen correctly, performs its role continuously without attention. Over time, the fabric barrier becomes invisible. It is no longer experienced as clothing, but as an environment. The body moves within it naturally. Hygiene becomes embedded in daily life, rather than being performed separately. This embedding reduces dependence on individual actions. Even when attention lapses, clothing continues to protect. This reliability makes it valuable. Practices that rely on constant vigilance rarely endure. Fabric endures. The barrier also interacts with other methods. Animal fat seals the skin beneath. Sand and ash manage moisture when needed. Clothing prevents excess from forming in the first place. Each layer complements the others, creating a system rather than a single solution. This system does not aim to defeat the desert. It works within it. Clothing does not promise relief. It promises balance. The body remains exposed enough to adapt, protected enough to endure. The reduction of sweat also conserves water internally. Less sweating means less fluid lost. Hydration lasts longer. Survival gains another quiet advantage from what appears to be a simple choice of dress. The fabric barrier, then, is not merely clothing. It is shade that moves with the body. It is a filter between the skin and the world. It transforms exposure into endurance. As with other desert practices, this method persists because it solves multiple problems at once. It protects skin, reduces sweat, limits odor, and conserves energy. No single benefit would be enough on its own. Together, they justify the habit. In the Sahara, long clothing forms a moving shade that shields skin from heat and dust. By reducing direct exposure, the body sweats less and remains more stable throughout the day. With fabric managing the outside, attention shifts toward another force that cleans without touch. Sunlight in the Sahara is not treated as scenery. It is treated as a force. It governs movement, rest, and exposure. And it also becomes part of hygiene in ways that feel almost accidental at first. When water cannot be spared for washing clothes, and moisture itself invites problems, the sun takes on a role that elsewhere belongs to soap and rinse. Strong sunlight alters surfaces quietly. Fabrics left under it dry completely, quickly, and thoroughly. Moisture that would linger in the shade disappears. This dryness alone removes many conditions that allow bacteria to persist. What survives dampness struggles under prolonged exposure to heat and light. Without naming it as science, people observe the outcome and adjust their behavior accordingly. Clothing does not need to be washed to be cared for. Instead, it is shaken free of dust, then spread out under the open sky. The sun reaches into folds and seams, areas that water would struggle to penetrate without soaking. Hours pass. Heat builds. Light remains constant. When the fabric is taken back, it feels different. Not cleaner in appearance, but calmer, lighter, less reactive against the skin. This practice becomes habitual because it fits desert rhythms. Midday heat limits movement. People seek shade and stillness. Clothes are placed in the sun during these pauses. Hygiene does not interrupt life. It aligns with it. The absence of water changes priorities. Washing fabric with limited water would leave it damp, slow to dry, and uncomfortable to wear. Dampness would create friction and irritation. Sun drying avoids this entirely. Fabric returns dry and ready, without carrying moisture back to the body. Sunlight also discourages odor. Odor thrives where moisture and bacteria persist. By removing both, prolonged sun exposure reduces scent without masking it. There is no attempt to perfume the fabric. Cleanliness remains functional rather than sensory. This approach requires patience. It does not deliver immediate results. Time replaces action. The sun works slowly, consistently, without supervision. This patience mirrors other desert practices. Solutions that require waiting endure better than those that demand constant effort. Over time, clothing becomes part of the hygienic system, rather than an object to be cleaned aggressively. It absorbs sweat, intercepts dust, and then releases both back into the environment through air and light. The body beneath benefits without being directly washed. This method also reduces wear. Frequent washing with water would weaken fibers, shorten garment life, and increase the need for replacement. Sun exposure, when managed carefully, preserves fabric longer. In an environment where replacement is not guaranteed, this matters. The sun's role extends beyond clothing. Items used daily are placed in the light regularly. Tools, containers, and bedding are aired. Heat and dryness prevent the buildup of moisture that would otherwise attract insects or decay. Hygiene expands outward, touching more than just the body. There is no belief that the sun purifies everything. It is not trusted blindly. Items heavily soiled are treated differently. Attention remains central. Sunlight is one tool among many, used where it proves effective. This effectiveness becomes clear through absence. Fewer rashes, less irritation, reduced odor. These outcomes reinforce the habit. Practices that deliver visible stability persist. Those who fail are abandoned. The idea of using sunlight for hygiene challenges expectations shaped by indoor life. In many places, sunlight is avoided to preserve fabric or prevent fading. In the Sahara, fading matters less than function. Appearance yields to outcome. The practice also reflects trust in the environment rather than opposition to it. Instead of shielding everything from the sun, people work with it. Light is allowed to touch daily life fully. This openness reduces dependence on tools and substances that require water. Sun exposure becomes routine, not an event. There is no announcement when clothes are laid out, no sense of special action. It happens because it always has. The lack of ceremony allows consistency. Consistency is what makes the method effective. A single exposure would do little. Repeated exposure, day after day, changes conditions enough to matter. Hygiene here accumulates quietly. This accumulation supports the broader system. Sand manages moisture on the body. Ash reduces risk on contact points. Fat protects the skin from the environment. Clothing intercepts exposure. Sunlight maintains what clothing collects. Each element connects to the others. The sun also provides predictability. It rises and sets reliably. This reliability allows planning. Hygiene can depend on it without fear of shortage. Unlike water, the sun does not run out. This dependence shapes daily rhythm. Activities are arranged around light. Work pauses align with peak exposure. Hygiene fits into these pauses naturally. There is no separation between living and cleaning. From the outside, the idea of sterilizing through sunlight may seem informal or incomplete. Yet outcomes suggest otherwise. The absence of persistent infection and irritation indicates effectiveness. The method does not need explanation to justify itself. The sun does not create cleanliness in the modern sense. It creates conditions where harm struggles to persist. This is enough. Cleanliness here is not about perfection. It is about prevention. As with other desert practices, this method remains quiet. It does not announce itself. It does not promise comfort. It offers stability through repetition. Over time, sunlight becomes an expected participant in daily care. It is no longer noticed as a method. It is simply there, doing what it does best under conditions where other tools fail. This quiet partnership between environment and habit defines desert hygiene. Solutions do not overpower nature. They align with it. The sun becomes a constant ally, not an enemy to escape. In the Sahara, strong sunlight becomes a steady force that limits moisture and discourages decay. By relying on heat and time rather than water, clothing remains dry and stable against the skin. As light manages what fabric holds, attention turns toward another practice shaped by movement rather than exposure. In the Sahara, clothes are not treated as things that must be soaked to become clean. They are treated as surfaces that collect what the body releases, then give it back to the environment. Washing, which relies on water and time, gives way to a simpler rhythm built around hands, air, and heat. This rhythm repeats quietly, day after day, without calling attention to itself. The first step is removal, not cleansing. Garments are lifted and shaken by hand, sometimes several times, sometimes only once, depending on need. Fine dust and sand fall away easily. What remains is what matters. The goal is not to erase every trace of the desert, but to prevent buildup that would irritate the skin. Excess is removed. Residue that causes no harm is tolerated. Hands learn how much force to use. Too few leaves are left behind. Too much damaged fabric. The movement becomes practiced, efficient, almost unconscious. It takes seconds rather than minutes. Hygiene fits into pauses between tasks rather than demanding separate time. Once shaken, clothing is spread out under the open sky. Sun and air do the rest. Moisture trapped in fibers disappears quickly. Heat reaches into folds where water would linger. Time replaces effort. The garment is left alone while other work continues. Drying is not treated as an afterthought. It is the central act. In a dry environment, dryness itself prevents many problems. Damp fabric causes friction, irritation, and odor. Dry fabric rests lightly against the skin. It moves rather than clings. This difference becomes noticeable over long days of movement. Because water is not used, there is no risk of incomplete drying. Clothing does not return to the body, holding moisture in seams or thick areas. The skin beneath remains calmer. The body expends less energy, dealing with irritation. This approach also preserves fabric. Repeated soaking weakens fibers, stretches seams, and shortens the life of garments. Shaking and drying cause far less damage. In an environment where replacement is uncertain, durability matters. Clothes must last, not look new. Changing clothes follows a cycle rather than a schedule. Garments are rotated when possible, allowing each to air fully before being worn again. This rotation spreads wear evenly and gives time for heat and air to do their work. Hygiene becomes distributed across time, instead of concentrated in a single act. The absence of washing does not lead to neglect. It leads to observation. Clothes are checked for stiffness, for areas that rub too much, and for signs of trapped grit. Adjustments are made quietly. A garment that irritates is set aside. One that performs well remains in use. From a modern perspective, this may seem insufficient. Washing is often associated with cleanliness itself. Without it, the assumption is that dirt accumulates unchecked. In the Sahara, accumulation is managed differently. Dust is expected, moisture is not. The system focuses on what causes harm, rather than what offends the eye. Odor is handled the same way. Smell becomes a sign to adjust drying time or rotation, not a failure requiring immediate intervention. Sun and air address the cause rather than masking the effect. There is no attempt to add scent. Cleanliness remains practical. This method aligns with movement. Life in the desert rarely allows long periods of stillness. Shaking and drying fit easily into transitions between tasks. They do not interrupt travel or work. Hygiene becomes portable. The simplicity of the method ensures consistency. Practices that demand effort or tools are easily abandoned under pressure. Shaking and drying require neither. They persist because they cost little and deliver enough. Over time, clothing becomes an extension of the hygienic system rather than a separate concern. It intercepts sweat, dust, and oil, then releases them back to the air and light. The body benefits without being directly washed. This indirect approach reduces dependence on any single action. There is no moment when cleanliness must be achieved all at once. Instead, it is maintained gradually. Small adjustments prevent larger problems. The rhythm also reduces anxiety. There is no fear of running out of water for washing. There is no pressure to perform hygiene at specific times. The system adapts to circumstances rather than demanding control over them. This adaptability is essential. Desert conditions change quickly. Heat intensifies, wind rises, dust increases. Hygiene that depends on rigid routines would fail. Shaking and drying respond immediately to change. The method also reflects trust in the environment rather than resistance. Air and sun are allowed to participate fully. They are not obstacles to overcome, but forces to work with. This partnership reduces the need for intervention. Over generations, this practice becomes unremarkable. It is not discussed or defended. It is simply how things are done. The absence of washing is not a statement. It is a consequence of priorities. Those priorities remain consistent. Water is saved for life. Comfort is secondary. Cleanliness exists to support endurance, not appearance. Shaking and drying meet these conditions quietly. The result is not perfection. Clothes carry marks of use. Dust never disappears completely. Yet, the body beneath remains protected. Skin stays intact. Movement continues. This outcome justifies the habit. The desert does not reward ideals. It rewards what works. Shaking and drying work because they respect limits rather than challenge them. As this rhythm settles into daily life, attention naturally shifts elsewhere. Once clothing is managed without water, other parts of the body require different solutions. Hands, mouth, and breath demand care through other means. In the Sahara, clothing stays usable through simple removal of dust and complete drying under open air. By avoiding water, Fabric remains dry, durable, and gentle against the skin. As garments find balance without washing, focus moves toward another habit shaped by the mouth rather than the body. Oral care in the Sahara does not rely on foam, liquid, or ritual. It relies on habit, shaped by scarcity and repetition. When water cannot be spared for rinsing and paste does not exist, the mouth must be kept healthy through a method that works quietly and consistently. This method takes the form of a simple twig, dry at first glance, yet carefully chosen. The twig is known as miswak, taken from specific trees whose fibers and sap carry properties that discourage bacterial growth. Its value is not discovered through instruction or experiment, but through endurance. Over generations, people observe fewer mouth infections, stronger gums, and teeth that remain usable despite harsh conditions. The method persists because it delivers results without demanding resources. Preparation is minimal. One end of the twig is bitten or chewed until the fibers separate, forming a soft brush. No water is required, no paste is added. The brush is created by the mouth itself, shaped to fit its contours. This immediacy removes barriers. Oral care becomes possible anywhere, at any time. The brushing motion is gentle. Fibers are drawn across teeth and gums slowly, guided by sensation rather than routine. Pressure is adjusted instinctively. Too much would irritate the gums. Too little would leave residue behind. The mouth signals what it needs, and hands respond. Miswak cleans mechanically through friction and chemically through its natural compounds. Plaque is disrupted, residue loosens. The gums receive mild stimulation that supports circulation rather than injury. There is no expectation of a polished feeling. Cleanliness is measured by the absence of pain, swelling, or decay. Rinsing is not required. Saliva carries away loosened particles gradually. The mouth remains functional rather than refreshed. This distinction shapes expectations. Oral care is not a moment of relief. It is a quiet maintenance that prevents problems from forming. Because the twig does not depend on water, it can be used frequently. Short sessions replace long routines. After meals, during rest, or while traveling, the same simple action repeats. Consistency replaces intensity. This consistency protects teeth more reliably than an occasional thorough cleaning would. The absence of toothpaste removes another layer of dependence. Paste promises freshness through flavor and foam. Miswak offers none of this. Its taste is subtle, sometimes bitter, sometimes neutral. This absence reinforces the functional focus. Cleanliness is not associated with sensation, but with outcome. The mouth benefits from dryness in this environment. Moisture trapped between teeth would encourage problems. Miswak does not flood the mouth. It respects the dry conditions that limit bacterial growth. What seems minimal proves suitable. Children adopt this practice early. They watch adults use twigs without ceremony. They imitate without instruction. Oral care becomes integrated into daily life, rather than taught as a separate task. This integration ensures endurance. Practices learned early and repeated often persist. From an external perspective, brushing without paste or water appears incomplete. Modern hygiene emphasizes products and processes. In the desert, emphasis shifts to availability and effect. The absence of complications justifies the method. Teeth remain serviceable, gums remain intact, pain remains rare. Miswak also travels well. It does not spoil, it does not require containers, it can be carried easily or replaced locally. This portability supports nomadic movement and long journeys. Oral care does not halt progress. It accompanies it. The method also avoids one of the hidden risks of water use. Rinsing with contaminated water would introduce bacteria directly into the mouth. Miswak avoids this risk entirely. It introduces no external liquid, relying only on what the body already produces. Over time, the mouth adapts. Gums toughen slightly without becoming damaged. Teeth resist decay. The absence of sugary products further supports this stability. Oral health becomes another area where restraint proves protective. This approach also reflects a broader philosophy. Tools are chosen not for sophistication, but for reliability. The simplest object that performs the task is preferred. Miswak meets this standard. It cleans without complication. There is no belief that this method is superior. It exists because it works under specific conditions. The desert does not invite comparison. It rewards function. Anything that fails disappears quietly. Miswak also aligns with the desert's emphasis on repetition. A small action performed often produces better outcomes than a large action performed rarely. Oral care follows this rule. Short, frequent use maintains balance. The practice remains unobtrusive. There is no designated time or place. It does not interrupt conversation or travel. It fits into pauses rather than creating them. This unobtrusiveness supports consistency. As with other aspects of desert hygiene, this method reduces dependence. The mouth does not rely on supplies that may vanish. Health remains in the hands of the individual, guided by habit rather than access. The absence of toothpaste removes the expectation of artificial flavor. Breath is not perfumed. Odor is managed through cleanliness rather than concealment. This honesty reflects the broader desert approach. Problems are addressed at their source. The twig itself is replaced when worn. Old fibers are discarded. New ones are prepared easily. There is no attachment to tools beyond their usefulness. Hygiene remains flexible. This flexibility allows the method to persist across changing conditions. Heat intensifies, travel lengthens, resources fluctuate, oral care remains possible, the mouth remains functional. In this way, miswak becomes more than a tool. It becomes part of daily rhythm, woven into life without demanding attention. Its simplicity ensures its survival. As oral care settles into this quiet routine, attention begins to move elsewhere. Breath, scent, and internal balance present new challenges that require different solutions, drawn from plants rather than tools. In the Sahara, oral care depends on a simple twig that cleans through habit rather than products. Frequent, gentle use maintains balance inside the mouth without relying on water or foam. Once teeth remain stable through this routine, another concern quietly emerges, tied to breath rather than surfaces. In the Sahara, breath is not treated as something to be masked. It is treated as something to be balanced. When water cannot be spared for rinsing, and paste does not exist to coat the mouth, attention turns inward. What enters the body matters more than what is covered up. Fragrance begins not on the surface, but within. Seeds, bark, and dried herbs become quiet companions throughout the day. They are not consumed for pleasure alone. Their role is subtle and practical. A few seeds are chewed slowly. A strip of bark rests between teeth. The mouth works, saliva flows, and the compounds released do their work without ceremony. Anise seeds, cinnamon bark, and certain local herbs are chosen through familiarity rather than instruction. Over time, people notice which plants leave the mouth calm rather than irritated, which reduce unpleasant odor, and which do not upset the stomach under heat. This knowledge accumulates quietly, shaped by outcomes rather than belief. Chewing serves multiple purposes at once. It stimulates saliva, which naturally cleans the mouth. It releases aromatic oils that counter odor without overwhelming the senses. It occupies the mouth during long periods of movement, reducing dryness that would otherwise cause discomfort. None of this requires water. The aroma produced is not strong. It does not announce itself. It lingers briefly, then fades. This impermanence aligns with desert habits. Nothing is expected to last indefinitely. Freshness is temporary. Stability is the goal. Unlike modern breath fresheners, these plants do not aim to disguise problems. They address conditions that create them. Dryness, imbalance, and digestive discomfort often contribute to unpleasant breath. By easing these conditions, the plants work indirectly, without force. Digestive comfort matters more than it might seem. In extreme heat, digestion slows. Heavy meals cause discomfort. Gas and acidity rise. These internal processes affect breath as much as oral hygiene does. Chewing certain seeds and bark supports digestion gently, reducing the source of odor rather than its symptom. This internal focus reflects a broader pattern. Desert hygiene rarely targets appearances, it targets causes. Breath that improves because the body is balanced is preferred to breath that smells pleasant for a short time. The difference is subtle, but it shapes habit. There is no schedule for chewing. It happens when needed, after meals, during travel, in moments of rest. The lack of structure allows consistency. Practices that require timing or preparation are easily abandoned under pressure. This one persists because it fits anywhere. Children observe this early. They see adults chew without comment. They imitate without explanation. Breathing care becomes part of daily movement, rather than a separate task. This integration ensures endurance. The absence of water also removes the expectation of rinsing. Seeds and bark leave residue, but saliva manages it gradually. The mouth remains dry enough to discourage bacterial growth. Flooding would defeat this balance. From an outside perspective, this method may seem incomplete. Without strong flavors or foam, it lacks the sensation many associate with cleanliness. In the desert, sensation is not proof, outcome is. The method also avoids dependence. Seeds and bark can be gathered, stored, or replaced easily. They do not spoil quickly. They do not require containers or processing. Breathing care remains possible even when movement is constant. Over time, preferences develop. Some plants are avoided because they irritate the mouth. Others are favored for their mildness. This selection is practical. The desert does not reward extremes. Gentle solutions endure. Chewing also serves as a signal. When the mouth feels dry or uncomfortable, the habit begins naturally. There is no waiting for a problem to escalate. Small adjustments prevent larger discomforts. This preventive approach aligns with other aspects of desert hygiene. Sand removes moisture before irritation forms. Ash reduces risk before infection appears. Fat protects skin before cracking begins. Seeds and bark address the breath before it becomes an issue. The plants themselves are not romanticized. They are not considered cures or symbols. They are tools. Their value lies in their effect, not their origin. If a plant fails, it disappears from use without debate. The aroma they produce is subtle and personal. It is not meant to be noticed by others. It exists for the individual's comfort and balance rather than social display. This reflects the desert's inward focus. Survival precedes impression. This inward focus also reduces anxiety. There is no pressure to maintain a certain scent. Breath is managed because imbalance feels uncomfortable, not because judgment is expected. Hygiene becomes self-referential rather than performative. The method also respects scarcity. Water remains untouched. Energy expenditure is minimal. Time is not consumed. Breath care slips into daily life without cost. As with other practices, repetition strengthens the effect. Occasional chewing would do little. Frequent, gentle use maintains balance. The mouth remains stable. Odor does not accumulate. Digestion remains calmer under heat. This stability reinforces the habit. What works quietly is repeated. What demands attention fades. Over generations, the practice becomes ordinary. In this ordinariness lies its strength. There is no resistance to it because it asks for nothing extra. It does not compete with survival tasks. It supports them indirectly. The Sahara does not encourage separation between body systems. Mouth, stomach, and breath are understood as connected. Addressing one affects the others. Seeds and bark work along this connection rather than against it. This understanding does not come from theory. It comes from living with limits. When limits are constant, solutions must be simple and interconnected. As breath finds balance through these quiet methods, attention moves outward again. The body, clothed and protected, still produces moisture under heat. Managing that moisture requires another layer of attention, one shaped by fabric rather than plants. In the Sahara, fragrant breath is maintained through gentle chewing that supports balance rather than masking scent. By addressing dryness and digestion together, odor fades without force or excess. When the mouth settles into this quiet rhythm, attention returns to the body and the way moisture is managed beneath layers of cloth. In the Sahara, sweat is not treated as something to eliminate. It is treated as a signal that must be managed. When the body overheats, moisture appears. When moisture lingers, problems follow. Clothing becomes the primary tool that stands between these two outcomes, not by trapping heat, but by guiding it. Thin cotton layers are chosen for their balance rather than their simplicity. A single layer would expose the skin too directly. Thick fabric would hold heat and moisture. Multiple light layers create space. Air moves through these spaces slowly, reducing heat without stripping moisture from the skin all at once. This gradual exchange keeps the body steadier over time. Coverage plays a central role. Arms, legs, shoulders, and torso remain protected from direct sunlight. Shade follows the body wherever it moves. This shade reduces surface temperature and lowers the body's need to cool itself through sweating. Less sweat means less moisture trapped against the skin. and fewer opportunities for irritation. The fabric does not cling. Loose construction allows movement without friction. Tight garments would compress sweat into the skin, increasing discomfort and risk. Loose layers lift away slightly with movement, encouraging evaporation without exposure. This controlled evaporation matters. Sweat that disappears too quickly leaves salt behind. Sweat that lingers creates dampness. Clothing moderates both extremes. Over time, the body adjusts to this system. Sweat production becomes more measured. The skin remains calmer. The sensation of constant dampness fades. This adjustment reduces fatigue. The body spends less energy regulating temperature and more energy maintaining movement and attention. The choice of cotton is practical. It breathes without holding excessive heat. It absorbs moisture briefly, then releases it into the air. Synthetic materials behave differently. They trap heat or cling when wet, disrupting the balance. Cotton performs predictably under harsh conditions, which gives it value. Layering also allows flexibility. When conditions change, layers can be adjusted subtly, without exposing skin fully. A sleeve is loosened, a fold is shifted. The body remains covered while adapting. Hygiene does not require interruption. It continues through small changes rather than dramatic actions. This system also reduces odor. Odor forms where moisture persists and bacteria multiply. By limiting sweat and encouraging steady drying, clothing prevents these conditions from forming. There is no need to mask scent. The cause is addressed quietly. The fabric barrier becomes a filter. Dust strikes cloth before skin. Heat diffuses through layers rather than concentrating on the body. Sweat emerges more slowly. Each effect alone would be modest. Together, they create stability. Stability matters more than comfort. Clothing does not make the body feel cool. It makes it feel less threatened. This distinction shapes expectations. Relief is not promised. Endurance is. The method works because it is continuous. Clothing performs its role at all times, even when attention shifts elsewhere. Hygiene does not depend on remembering to act. It depends on what is already worn. This reliability supports long days of movement and work. From a distance, multiple layers of heat appear counterproductive. Experience reveals the opposite. Bare skin reacts sharply to the sun and wind. Covered skin responds more slowly. The body remains within manageable limits. This approach also conserves water internally. Reduced sweating means less fluid loss. Hydration lasts longer. Survival gains another quiet advantage from clothing choices that appear simple. Garments themselves require care, but not washing. They are shaken, aired, and dried. Moisture leaves them as it leaves the body, gradually. The system remains closed, relying on air and light rather than water. Children learn these habits early. They feel the difference between exposed and covered skin. They adjust without explanation. Clothing becomes part of bodily awareness rather than fashion. This awareness ensures consistency across generations. The practice does not seek perfection. Sweat still appears, heat still presses, dust still settles. The goal is not elimination, it is control. By reducing extremes, clothing prevents small problems from becoming serious ones. This prevention aligns with every other aspect of desert hygiene. Sand removes excess moisture when it appears. Ash reduces risk at contact points. Fat protects skin integrity. Clothing limits the conditions that create problems in the first place. Together, these methods form a layered response. No single action carries the burden alone. Each contributes a small effect that accumulates. Clothing's role is foundational because it operates constantly. The body responds positively to this constancy. Stress decreases, irritation lessens, movement becomes easier. These outcomes reinforce the habit. What works is repeated, what fails disappears. This repetition does not require belief. It requires observation. When the body remains intact, the method is trusted. The desert does not reward theory, it rewards results. Clothing, in this context, is not protection from nature. It is a negotiation with it. The sun is filtered, not blocked. Heat is managed, not escaped. Sweat is reduced, not denied. This negotiation preserves energy and attention. Attention matters. When the body is less distressed, the mind remains clearer. Clear attention supports every other task, including hygiene. The connection is indirect but consistent. Over time, the layers feel natural. The body expects them. Removing them feels harsher than wearing them. This reversal highlights how the environment reshapes comfort. The cotton layers also age well. They soften with use. They adapt to movement. Their predictability becomes another form of stability. Hygiene benefits from this familiarity. As with other desert practices, this method remains quiet. There is no instruction manual, no emphasis on technique. It is learned by living with limits. This quiet persistence ensures endurance. Practices that demand explanation or justification often fade. Clothing that works does not need defense. As sweat comes under control through fabric and shade, hygiene shifts again. The body remains stable longer, but hands continue to move between tasks. Keeping them safe requires another simple adjustment. In the Sahara, layered cotton clothing moderates heat and reduces the body's need to sweat. By creating shade and airflow together, skin remains calmer throughout long exposure. With moisture kept under control this way, attention moves toward the hands and how they are kept safe without water. Across the Sahara, oral hygiene does not appear as a phase tied to youth or a habit that fades with age. It remains constant across a lifetime. From childhood to old age, the mouth is cared for in the same quiet way, without water, without foam, and without reliance on tools that might disappear. This continuity gives the practice its strength. Miswak has existed for thousands of years, not because it is ceremonial or preserved by tradition alone, but because it functions under limits that never change. Heat persists, water remains scarce, movement remains necessary. A method that survives across centuries does so by fitting these conditions rather than resisting them. The twig itself requires no preparation beyond selection. Certain trees are preferred because their fibers separate easily and their sap carries mild antibacterial properties. This choice is practical, not symbolic. Over time, people observe fewer problems where miswak is used consistently. Teeth remain usable. Gums stay firm. Pain does not become common. These outcomes sustain the practice without the need for explanation. What makes this approach distinct is its independence. Oral care does not rely on water availability, trade routes, or manufactured goods. It can be performed anywhere, at any moment, without interrupting movement or routine. This independence ensures consistency, and consistency preserves health. Modern thinking often associates progress with replacement. Old methods are expected to yield to new ones. In this case, replacement never becomes necessary. Miswak continues to perform its role even as other tools emerge elsewhere. Its simplicity protects it from becoming obsolete. Scientific interest arrives much later. Researchers examine what has already endured. Studies confirm what experience suggested long before. Miswak cleans mechanically and chemically, reduces plaque, and supports gum health. Recognition by the World Health Organization does not create legitimacy. It acknowledges what has already proven itself through long use. This acknowledgement matters only as a bridge. It connects modern frameworks to ancient practice. It shows that effectiveness does not require modern packaging. A method can be ancient, simple, and still align with contemporary understanding of health. The desert does not wait for validation. It keeps what works. The lifelong nature of this hygiene reflects how habits form under scarcity. Methods that demand effort or constant resources tend to weaken over time. Those that require little endure. Miswak asks almost nothing. It fits into pauses, rest, and movement itself. Oral care becomes background rather than a task. This background quality is essential. It removes resistance. There is no moment when one must decide to clean the mouth. The action flows naturally. This flow supports the longevity of the habit across decades. There is also no dependency on sensation. Toothpaste promises freshness and flavor. Miswak offers neither. The absence of a strong sensation removes expectation. Cleanliness becomes defined by the absence of trouble rather than the presence of feeling. Throughout life, the mouth changes. Teeth wear down. Gums shift. Sensitivity evolves. The miswak adapts without modification. Pressure is adjusted instinctively. Fibers soften or are replaced. The tool changes with the user rather than demanding that the user change the method. This adaptability supports aging. Older individuals do not require new techniques or supplies. The same simple action continues. Oral care does not become harder with time. This stability reduces risk later in life. The practice also respects internal balance. Saliva production is stimulated gently rather than overwhelmed. The mouth remains dry enough to discourage bacterial growth while still functioning comfortably. Flooding it with water would disrupt this balance rather than improve it. There is no separation between oral hygiene and daily life. The twig may be used while walking, resting, or waiting. This integration removes the idea that hygiene requires special conditions. Health maintenance becomes continuous rather than scheduled. The desert environment reinforces this continuity. There is no place to store excess supplies. No guarantee of access. Methods that depend on permanence fail. Miswak succeeds because it accepts impermanence. Twigs are replaced easily. The habit remains. This acceptance reduces waste. There are no containers to discard, no residues to manage. The environment is not burdened by the practice. Hygiene aligns with sustainability by necessity rather than ideology. The persistence of miswak across generations also builds trust. When children observe elders using the same method, confidence forms naturally. There is no doubt to overcome. The practice is not debated. It is inherited. This inheritance carries knowledge that is practical rather than theoretical. Children learn which trees are suitable, how much pressure to apply, and when to replace a twig. These details are absorbed quietly through observation. The simplicity of the method protects it from misuse. There are a few steps to perform incorrectly. There is little opportunity for harm. Overcomplication often introduces risk. Miswak avoids this entirely. The desert values such reliability. Health practices that remain stable under pressure become part of life rather than tasks to manage. Oral hygiene without water becomes unremarkable, and this unremarkableness ensures endurance. Recognition by modern health authorities does not alter the role of miswak in the Sahara. It continues unchanged. The desert does not adapt to recognition. Recognition adapts to the desert. This relationship highlights a broader truth. Effectiveness does not depend on complexity. It depends on suitability. A method that aligns with the environment and habit will outlast more elaborate solutions. Over a lifetime, the mouth remains functional not because it is refreshed daily, but because it is maintained gently and consistently. The absence of water does not weaken this care. It defines it. As oral hygiene settles into this steady rhythm, attention begins to move outward again. The body remains covered, protected, and balanced, yet scent still emerges under heat. Addressing it requires another quiet adjustment, drawn not from tools but from plants. Lifelong oral care in the Sahara survives through a method that asks for no water and no dependence. Simplicity and repetition allow the same practice to remain effective across generations. As the mouth stays balanced through this restraint, attention turns toward how the rest of the body manages scent under constant heat. Body odor in the Sahara is not treated as something shameful or urgent. It is treated as a condition that appears when balance slips. Heat, movement, and dryness shape how the body smells. Rather than attempting to erase scent, people focus on guiding it into something neutral and manageable. This guidance comes from plants. Leaves, tree resins, and powdered herbs are used quietly, without ceremony. They are not perfumes in the modern sense. They do not promise constant freshness. Their role is practical. They interrupt odor, calm the skin, and create a buffer between sweat and air. The effect is subtle but lasting. Leaves are crushed gently between fingers, releasing oils that cling lightly to the skin. These oils do not overwhelm. They settle. Applied to areas where sweat collects, they reduce harsh scent by replacing it with something softer and less reactive. The skin beneath remains intact rather than irritated. Tree resins are used sparingly. A small amount is warmed by the hands, then spread thinly. The resin forms a light seal that slows moisture release. By limiting how sweat reaches the surface, it reduces the conditions that allow odor to intensify. This seal also protects the skin from friction and dust. Herbal powders serve a different role. They absorb moisture rather than sealing it. Applied to areas that remain covered by clothing, they keep the skin dry longer. Dryness matters more than scent. Odor fades naturally when moisture is controlled. The powder's fragrance is secondary. These substances are chosen through familiarity rather than theory. People know which plants soothe the skin and which cause irritation. Those that fail disappear from use. Those who succeed remain. Over time, a small set of reliable materials becomes part of daily life. The application is minimal. Too much would attract dust or clog pores. A thin layer is enough. This restraint prevents build-up and keeps the skin responsive. Hygiene remains light rather than heavy. The effects last longer than expected. Some resins and powders continue working for days, especially under dry conditions. This durability reduces the need for frequent attention. Body care does not interrupt movement or work. It continues quietly in the background. The method does not attempt to dominate scent. It softens it. The result is not absence, but neutrality. The body smells like itself, but less sharply. This acceptance reflects desert priorities. Survival does not demand perfection. It demands stability. There is no expectation that others will notice fragrance. The application is for personal comfort rather than display. Odor becomes manageable for the individual first. Social considerations follow naturally. This approach also avoids dependence. Plants are gathered locally. Resins are stored easily. Powders are prepared in small amounts. There is no reliance on trade or manufactured goods. Body care remains possible even when movement is constant. Children observe this practice without instruction. They see adults prepare leaves or powders casually. They imitate without explanation. Odor management becomes part of bodily awareness rather than a taught behavior. This awareness ensures continuity. The absence of water remains central. Washing the body frequently would dry the skin, increase irritation, and waste resources. Plant-based methods avoid these problems. They work with the skin rather than against it. The skin itself adapts. Protected by oils or powders, it becomes less reactive. Small abrasions heal more easily. Sweat patterns stabilize. Odor does not escalate into discomfort. The body settles into equilibrium. This equilibrium supports endurance. When the body feels less irritated, attention remains clearer. Movement becomes easier. Hygiene supports survival indirectly, without demanding focus. The plants themselves are not romanticized. They are tools. Their value lies in effect, not symbolism. If a plant stops working, it is replaced. There is no attachment beyond usefulness. This practicality reflects a broader pattern. Desert hygiene does not celebrate complexity. It rewards methods that solve multiple problems at once. Leaves soften scent and soothe skin. Resins protect and seal. Powders absorb moisture. Each material performs more than one role. The combination of these methods allows flexibility. On hotter days, powders dominate. During travel, resins protect against friction. In rest periods, leaves refresh lightly. Hygiene adapts without breaking rhythm. There is also an element of prevention. Applying plant materials before odor becomes noticeable reduces the need for later correction. This preventive focus mirrors other practices. Problems are addressed early, quietly. The scent produced is never strong. It fades naturally. This fading matters. Persistent fragrance would attract insects or mix unpleasantly with sweat. Subtlety ensures compatibility with the environment. Over time, the practice becomes invisible. There is no moment when one announces body care. It happens as part of dressing, resting, or preparing for movement. This invisibility supports consistency. Consistency ensures effectiveness. Occasional application would do little. Regular, light use maintains balance. The skin remains calm. Odor remains subdued. This calmness extends to clothing. Fabrics absorb less scent when skin remains dry and protected. Clothing lasts longer between airings. The entire system supports itself. The desert does not tolerate waste. Methods that consume resources or attention fail. Plant-based odor control persists because it asks little and gives enough. As with other practices, this one does not seek validation. It exists because it works. The absence of complaints confirms its value. Over generations, small variations appear. Different plants are favored in different regions. The principle remains unchanged. Control moisture, protect skin, soften scent. This principle aligns with everything else. Sand, ash, fat, fabric, sunlight, and plants all serve the same goal: stability under pressure. Odor control is simply another expression of that goal. As the body settles into this balanced state, attention moves again. Certain areas require more careful handling than others, especially where hygiene intersects with vulnerability. These areas demand methods that prioritize safety over comfort. Natural materials keep body scent under control by calming skin and limiting moisture rather than overpowering it. Leaves, resins, and powders work quietly, extending their effect without constant attention. Once odor is softened through this restraint, focus shifts toward areas where hygiene must be handled with greater care. Intimate hygiene in the Sahara is approached with caution rather than urgency. The body carries areas that react quickly to imbalance, and mistakes there carry greater consequences. Water, when scarce and unreliable, becomes a risk rather than a solution. The rule is simple and strict. Contaminated water is avoided completely. Instead of rinsing, care focuses on keeping the area dry, calm, and undisturbed. Soft cloths are used as the first layer of protection. These clothes are kept clean through shaking, airing, and sunlight rather than soaking. Their purpose is not to scrub, but to lift moisture and residue gently without irritating the skin. Touch remains light. Pressure is minimized. The goal is not to remove every trace of contact with the environment, but to prevent conditions that allow infection to begin. Excess moisture is the main concern. Dryness, within limits, becomes protective. Clean ash is used selectively. It is taken only from trusted sources, typically from burned shrubs, known to leave fine, pale residue, without sharp fragments. This ash is dry, powdery, and mild. Applied sparingly, it absorbs moisture and reduces friction. It does not burn. It does not cling aggressively. It settles, then falls away naturally. Leaves, fully dried and chosen carefully, serve a similar role. They provide a barrier between skin and fabric, preventing sweat from lingering. Their dryness matters more than any scent they might carry. Scent is incidental. Function is primary. The method avoids internal disturbance. Nothing is introduced into the body. Nothing is forced beneath the surface. Care remains external and minimal. This restraint protects sensitive tissue from disruption and reduces risk. Cloth used for this purpose is kept separate from other garments when possible. It is aired frequently and replaced when worn. The material remains soft through use, rather than washing. Harsh cleaning would stiffen fibers and increase irritation. Softness preserves comfort. Timing matters less than condition. Care is taken when moisture builds, after long movement, or before rest. There is no fixed schedule. Attention responds to the body rather than the clock. This responsiveness prevents problems from escalating. The absence of water is not a limitation here. It is a safeguard. Rinsing with contaminated water would introduce bacteria directly to vulnerable areas. Dry methods avoid this entirely. Risk is reduced by omission rather than addition. This approach reflects a broader desert principle. When a resource carries danger, it is excluded. Solutions are built around what can be controlled reliably. Dryness can be controlled. Clean ash can be chosen. Soft cloth can be maintained. Water cannot. The skin responds positively to this restraint. Irritation decreases. Chafing lessens. Small abrasions heal without being reopened by moisture. The area remains stable over long periods of heat and movement. There is no belief that this method is comfortable in a luxurious sense. Comfort is measured by the absence of pain and the absence of escalation. This measurement aligns with survival priorities. The body is kept functional rather than indulged. Children learn this approach gradually, through observation rather than instruction. They notice how adults handle care quietly and without discussion. The lack of attention reduces embarrassment. Hygiene becomes practical rather than emotional. This quietness matters. Practices surrounded by anxiety often fail. Calm methods persist. The desert favors what can be done without drama. The method also respects privacy. Care is performed discreetly. There is no display. This discretion supports dignity and reduces social strain. Hygiene does not become a public concern. Materials are chosen conservatively. If a leaf irritates, it is discarded. If ash feels harsh, it is avoided. Sensation guides adjustment. The body provides feedback. Practices evolve through listening, rather than instruction. The environment reinforces this listening. Heat amplifies discomfort quickly. Mistakes are felt early. Correction happens immediately. This feedback loop refines habit. Dry care also integrates with clothing choices. Loose layers reduce friction. Breathable fabrics allow heat to escape without exposing skin. The entire system works together. No single action carries the burden alone. This integration reduces the need for frequent intervention. When clothing manages sweat and air manages moisture, intimate care becomes occasional rather than constant. Stability replaces vigilance. The method does not aim for sterility, it aims for balance. The body carries its own defenses. Hygiene supports these defenses rather than replacing them. Interference is minimized. This minimalism preserves energy. Long days demand endurance. Practices that consume time or resources are trimmed away. What remains is what supports movement and rest without interruption. Over time, the approach becomes unremarkable. It is not discussed as a method, it is simply how care is taken. This ordinariness ensures continuity across generations. The desert does not encourage experimentation in vulnerable areas. Proven methods persist. New ideas are adopted cautiously, if at all. Stability outweighs novelty. The result is a form of care that appears austere but proves effective. Problems remain rare. When they appear, they are addressed early through adjustment rather than escalation. This effectiveness is quiet. There are no claims to make. The absence of trouble speaks for itself. The body remains intact. Movement continues. As with other practices, the success of this method lies in its refusal to do too much. By avoiding water, avoiding force, and avoiding excess, it preserves what matters most. When intimate hygiene remains stable under these constraints, attention shifts again. The body continues to endure heat and dust. Small injuries still occur. Managing them requires another careful approach that favors dryness and patience over intervention. Intimate care in the Sahara remains protective by avoiding moisture and minimizing disturbance. Dry cloth, clean ash, and restraint keep vulnerable areas stable under heat and movement. With balance preserved through these methods, attention turns to how the body handles small wounds without inviting infection. Dryness in the Sahara is not merely a condition of the land. It becomes a principle of care. Where moisture lingers, problems multiply. Where surfaces remain dry, many threats lose strength. This understanding shapes how wounds are treated, how skin is protected, and how illness is prevented without relying on water. Bacteria require favorable conditions to spread. Warmth alone is not enough. Moisture provides the medium that allows growth to accelerate. In a dry environment, this process slows dramatically. The desert makes this visible. Cuts left to dry heal differently from those kept wet. The difference is observed, remembered, and acted upon. Small wounds are common. Scratches from brush, abrasions from sand, cracks from movement under heat. None is dramatic, yet each carries risk. The response is immediate but restrained. The area is kept clean through gentle removal of debris, then left to dry completely. No attempt is made to seal it with moisture. Drying allows the wound to close naturally. A thin layer forms, protecting the tissue beneath. Air reaches the surface. Heat accelerates the process. The body's own defenses function without interference. This simplicity reduces complications. Moist treatments would disrupt this balance. Water trapped against the skin softens tissue and delays closure. It invites irritation. In an environment where water quality cannot be trusted, it also introduces unseen threats. Avoidance becomes the safer path. Ash sometimes plays a role here as well, used sparingly to absorb moisture around a wound rather than within it. Its purpose is not to heal directly, but to keep conditions unfavorable for infection. This restraint reflects experience rather than theory. Clothing supports this approach. Loose layers prevent friction and allow air to circulate. Tight coverings would trap heat and moisture, reversing the benefit of dryness. Fabric becomes part of the healing environment rather than an obstacle. The pace of care remains calm. There is no urgency to intervene repeatedly. Checking too often would disturb the area. Attention is given, then withdrawn. Time and air complete the work. This patience contrasts with habits formed in wetter climates, where constant washing feels reassuring. The reduction in skin infections over time reinforces the habit. Patterns become clear. Areas kept dry recover faster. Areas exposed to moisture struggle. The lesson repeats until it becomes instinct. Dryness also limits transmission. Many skin conditions spread through contact facilitated by moisture. When surfaces remain dry, transfer becomes more difficult. The risk of passing infection from one area to another decreases. Hygiene protects not just the individual, but those nearby. This principle extends beyond wounds. Folds of skin, areas under clothing, and contact points are kept as dry as possible. Moisture is addressed early, before discomfort appears. Prevention replaces reaction. Children learn this through observation. They see how adults respond to minor injuries without panic. They notice the emphasis on air and restraint. Over time, the association between dryness and safety forms naturally. There is no claim that dryness cures everything. Severe injuries require different attention. The method applies to what is common and manageable. In these cases, it proves sufficient. The environment enforces discipline. Heat amplifies mistakes. A wound treated poorly becomes painful quickly. Feedback is immediate. Correction follows. Habits refine themselves through consequence rather than instruction. This refinement leads to consistency. Practices that work under pressure endure. Those who fail disappear. Dry care persists because it aligns with conditions rather than fighting them. Modern perspectives often equate cleanliness with moisture. Soap, water, and repeated washing feel intuitive. In the Sahara, intuition shifts. Cleanliness becomes the absence of escalation. If a wound closes without issue, the method is trusted. The body adapts to this approach. Skin thickens slightly where needed. Healing accelerates. The immune response functions without being overwhelmed by constant disturbance. Balance is maintained. This balance supports endurance. Long days demand movement. Lingering infections would halt progress. Dry care minimizes downtime. Life continues. The approach also conserves resources. No water is diverted. No substances are consumed. Care costs nothing beyond attention and patience. In an environment where both are limited, this efficiency matters. The desert does not reward excess. Overtreatment introduces risk. Undertreatment invites problems. The middle path, shaped by dryness and restraint, proves safest. This principle echoes across all aspects of hygiene here. Moisture is controlled. Contact is limited. Air and heat are allowed to do their work. The body is supported rather than managed. Over time, this method becomes unremarkable. It is not discussed, it is practiced. The lack of infection becomes normal. Normalcy confirms success. The simplicity of dry care protects it from complications. There are a few steps to perform incorrectly. The body's response guides adjustment. Sensation replaces instruction. This reliance on sensation builds trust. When discomfort fades, the method is affirmed. When it persists, small changes are made. The system remains flexible. The broader effect is stability. Skin remains intact. Infections remain rare. Energy is preserved. Hygiene supports survival quietly, without demanding attention. As wounds heal reliably under dry conditions, attention shifts again. Daily movement continues. Hands, always in contact with tools and surfaces, require their own approach to cleanliness that respects the same principles of restraint. Dryness in the Sahara limits the conditions that allow infection to take hold. By letting wounds close in open air, the body recovers without interference. Through this reliance on restraint and heat, focus turns toward keeping the hands clean during constant use. Scent in the Sahara is not pursued through abundance. It is shaped through restraint. When water is scarce, but the desire for comfort remains, people turn to methods that stretch a single resource across many needs. Herbal scent water emerges from this balance, created with minimal liquid and careful use of plants. The process begins with selection. Herbs are chosen for stability rather than intensity. Leaves, roots, or bark that release fragrance slowly are preferred. Strong scents fade quickly under heat. Subtle ones endure. This endurance matters more than immediate impact. Only a small amount of water is used. Herbs are simmered gently rather than boiled aggressively. Heat draws out oils without wasting liquid. Steam rises. What escapes is not discarded. It is captured, condensed, and returned as a lightly scented fluid. Nothing is rushed. Time replaces volume. This distilled water is not meant for washing. It is applied sparingly. A cloth is dampened and drawn across the face. A few drops are touched onto the body. Sometimes it is sprayed lightly into the air around clothing. The goal is not saturation, it is present. The scent produced is calm. It settles rather than spreads. Heat does not overpower it. Instead, warmth activates it gradually, releasing fragrance over hours. This slow release aligns with desert rhythm. Nothing arrives all at once. Herbal scent water also soothes the skin. Unlike soap or alcohol, it does not strip natural oils. It rests lightly, cooling the surface without disturbing balance. The face feels calmer after application. The body responds without irritation. This method avoids direct washing for good reason. Water quality cannot always be trusted. Rinsing the face or body risks introducing contaminants. Using distilled herbal water avoids this. The liquid has been heated, purified through steam, and cooled. Risk is reduced through process rather than assumption. The amount prepared is small. Excess would spoil or evaporate. Freshness matters. What is made is used within a short time. This limitation prevents waste and encourages attention. Hygiene remains intentional. The scent itself serves multiple roles. It masks harsh odors gently. It refreshes without moisture buildup. It provides psychological relief under constant heat. This relief is quiet but meaningful. Small comforts matter when conditions are unyielding. There is no expectation of uniform fragrance. Different herbs produce different results. Variation is accepted. The practice values effect over consistency. If a scent calms and endures, it succeeds. This acceptance reflects a broader principle. Desert hygiene does not seek control, it seeks cooperation. Plants, heat, air, and water are allowed to contribute according to their nature. No element is forced beyond its capacity. The preparation process also becomes a pause. Simmering herbs requires stillness. Attention narrows. The act itself offers rest. Hygiene becomes part of the daily rhythm rather than an interruption. Children observe this quietly. They see elders prepare scented water without instruction. They learn restraint by watching how little is used. The lesson is subtle, but lasting. The scent of water does not compete with other methods. It complements them. Clothing controls sweat. Plants soften odor. Dryness prevents irritation. Scent water adds comfort without undermining balance. Its application remains external. Nothing is consumed. Nothing is absorbed deeply. The body remains in control. This distance preserves stability. The fragrance lingers longer than expected because it is released slowly. Heat activates it. Movement renews it. The scent does not disappear quickly. This persistence reduces the need for frequent reapplication. The method also respects privacy. Scent is personal. It does not announce presence. It stays close to the body. This subtlety aligns with desert social norms, where attention is not sought unnecessarily. There is no belief that scent water replaces cleanliness. It supports it. It works best when other methods already maintain balance. On neglected skin, it would fail. This dependency reinforces holistic care. The simplicity of the method ensures endurance. Few steps, few materials, little water. Practices that survive under scarcity tend to last. The desert reinforces this lesson constantly. Anything excessive becomes liability. Anything moderate becomes an ally. Scent water remains moderate. Over time, preferences shift. Certain herbs are favored during extreme heat, others during travel. Adaptation continues. The method remains flexible. This flexibility allows scent water to persist across regions and generations. While specific plants vary, the principle remains unchanged. Distill gently. Apply lightly. Let heat do the rest. The practice also avoids buildup. Unlike oils or heavy substances, scent water leaves no residue. Skin remains breathable. Clothing remains light. Hygiene remains intact. The result is comfort without compromise. A sense of freshness without moisture. Relief without risk. These small gains matter. The desert does not promise ease. It allows stability. Scent water contributes to that stability quietly. As with all desert practices, its success lies in what it does not do. It does not flood the skin. It does not overwhelm the senses. It does not demand resources. It offers just enough. This just enough becomes the standard. Hygiene adapts to limits rather than fighting them. Comfort follows naturally. As scent water settles into daily use, attention shifts again. Some people live their entire lives without ever bathing in water. This reality reshapes the body itself, altering how skin and scent behave over time. Herbal scent water offers comfort using careful control of heat, plants, and minimal liquid. Light application refreshes the body without disrupting dryness or balance. From this quiet refinement, attention turns to how a body adapts after years without bathing at all. Living without water, bathing in the Sahara, is not an act of denial or hardship performed reluctantly. It is a state the body grows into over time. What begins as adaptation slowly becomes normality. The absence of water stops feeling like a lack and starts functioning as a condition the body understands. The skin adjusts first. When it is no longer stripped repeatedly by water, its surface changes. Natural oils remain intact instead of being washed away. These oils form a thin protective layer that reduces cracking, irritation, and excessive dryness. The skin becomes less reactive. Sensitivity fades. Balance forms quietly. Sweat behaves differently as well. Without constant washing, the body learns to regulate production more evenly. Sudden bursts decrease. Moisture appears more gradually and evaporates under layers of fabric and air. This moderation prevents the sharp odor spikes common in environments where sweat is frequently disrupted. Odor itself shifts in character. It does not disappear, but it softens. Harshness gives way to neutrality. The body stops producing aggressive scent responses, triggered by repeated cleansing and chemical interference. Instead, smell stabilizes at a low, steady level that rarely becomes offensive. This stabilization surprises outsiders. The assumption is that water bathing prevents odor. In the desert, repeated water exposure often worsens it. By removing oils and disrupting bacterial balance, frequent washing creates cycles of overproduction. Without water bathing, those cycles never begin. Over the years, the body settles into a rhythm. Skin flora adjusts. Bacteria that thrive in moisture decline. Dry conditions favor slower, less aggressive growth. The result is equilibrium rather than sterility. The body maintains itself instead of being reset repeatedly. This equilibrium turns a solution into a lifestyle. Practices such as sand rubbing, ash use, fabric layering, and sun exposure are no longer alternatives to bathing. They become the primary system. Water bathing becomes unnecessary rather than unavailable. The psychological shift follows the physical one. There is no expectation of the refreshed feeling associated with bathing. Cleanliness is defined differently. It is measured by comfort, absence of irritation, and ability to continue daily activity. These indicators replace scent and sensation. Children raised in this system never develop dependency on water bathing. Their bodies adapt early, skin strengthens, sweat patterns stabilize. Odor remains manageable without intervention. For them, the idea of daily washing feels excessive rather than comforting. This generational continuity reinforces trust. When elders live long, active lives without water bathing, doubt fades. The practice is not defended, it is observed. Observation becomes confirmation. The absence of bathing also conserves energy. Heating water, finding water, and performing full body washing would interrupt the daily rhythm. Without these demands, life flows more smoothly. Hygiene integrates into movement instead of halting it. The desert rewards such integration. Any habit that interrupts survival tasks must justify itself strongly. Water bathing fails this test. Its benefits do not outweigh its cost. Alternative methods persist because they support endurance. Skin health improves under this system. Fewer rashes appear. Cracks heal more predictably. The barrier function strengthens. The body becomes more resilient to friction and heat. Clothing plays a central role here. Fabric absorbs sweat gradually and releases it through air and sunlight. The skin beneath remains protected. This partnership between body and cloth replaces the role water once played. The absence of water bathing also reduces risk. Contaminated water poses danger when applied directly to the skin, especially in vulnerable areas. Avoiding water removes this risk entirely. Dry methods carry fewer unknowns. Over decades, the body's relationship with its environment deepens. Heat is no longer an enemy to escape, but a condition to work within. Hygiene supports this relationship rather than disrupting it. This way of living does not reject water as an idea. It recognizes its limits. Water is reserved for drinking, cooking, and survival. Hygiene adapts accordingly. Priority determines practice. The result is not discomfort, but familiarity. The body recognizes its own state and responds predictably. There is no shock from sudden exposure or removal. Stability replaces fluctuation. Modern observers often mistake this for neglect. They assume the absence of washing equals the absence of care. The opposite is true. Care is constant, but subtle. Attention replaces intervention. This subtlety ensures endurance. Practices that draw attention often fail under pressure. Quiet habits persist. Living without water, bathing becomes unremarkable, and that unremarkableness ensures survival. There is also a sense of bodily autonomy that emerges. Without dependence on external cleansing, the body feels self-sufficient. This perception supports confidence and calm. Calm supports judgment. Judgment supports survival. The lifestyle also reshapes social norms. Odor tolerance increases slightly. Sensitivity decreases. People adjust expectations rather than enforcing uniform standards. Hygiene becomes personal rather than collective. This flexibility reduces tension. There is no pressure to conform to an external ideal. The environment defines what is acceptable. The body responds accordingly. The desert does not romanticize this lifestyle. It enforces it. Those who adapt remain functional. Those who do not struggle. Over time, adaptation becomes culture. The culture does not announce itself. It lives quietly in daily habits. Sand replaces soap. Air replaces towels. Time replaces repetition. The body responds by settling into balance. Balance is the true outcome here. Not cleanliness in the modern sense, but harmony between skin, sweat, scent, and environment. This harmony sustains life under constant heat. As years pass, the absence of water bathing is no longer noticed. It stops being a choice. It becomes the way the body exists. Hygiene merges with living. This merging reveals something essential. The body does not require constant correction. Given stable conditions, it learns to maintain itself. The desert provides those conditions through scarcity. Scarcity simplifies. Simplification strengthens. Strength allows endurance. When living without water, bathing becomes ordinary. Other small practices gain importance. Hands remain in constant contact with tools, surfaces, and food. Keeping them safe without water demands another careful adjustment. Living without water bathing allows the body to stabilize rather than react. Skin, sweat, and scent adapt into a steady balance under dry conditions. Out of this long adaptation, attention moves toward how hands are kept clean in constant motion. Hands in the Sahara are never idle. They touch tools, fabric, animals, food, soil, and the bodies of others. They move constantly between tasks that cannot pause for washing. Because of this, hand hygiene is not treated as an occasional act. It becomes a continuous condition, maintained without water. Water, when present, is reserved for drinking and cooking. Using it on the hands would be wasteful and often unsafe. The risk of contaminated liquid outweighs any benefit. Instead, dryness becomes the foundation of care. What remains dry carries less danger. What stays dry transfers less. Sand is used first. Fine, clean sand removes residue through friction. Hands are rubbed lightly, palms together, fingers worked carefully. Oil, sweat, and dirt loosen and fall away. The action is brief and controlled. There is no scrubbing. Excess force would damage skin and create cracks that invite problems. Ash follows when needed. Clean ash absorbs moisture more effectively than sand. It is chosen from reliable sources and applied sparingly. The powder dulls slickness and leaves the skin matte rather than coated. This change matters. Slippery hands collect residue. Dry hands release it. Herbal powders serve a similar role, especially when ash is unavailable. They are ground finely and kept dry. Applied lightly, they absorb moisture and leave behind subtle plant residue that does not irritate the skin. Scent is secondary. Function is primary. The goal is not sterility, it is control. Removing excess oil and moisture reduces the ability of harmful organisms to persist. Hands remain safe enough to handle food and tools without spreading risk. Dry wiping replaces rinsing. Cloths are used to lift remaining particles after sand or ash has done its work. These clothes are kept clean through shaking and sunlight rather than washing. softness is preserved. Harsh fibers would damage skin. Care is frequent but minimal. Hands are attended to whenever they feel slick or heavy. There is no waiting for visible dirt. Sensation guides action. This responsiveness prevents buildup. Oil is deliberately avoided. Grease traps dust and creates a film that resists removal. Hands that come into contact with oil are treated immediately. Sand and ash break the film. Dryness is restored. This avoidance shapes behavior. Tasks are arranged to minimize greasy contact. When unavoidable, correction follows quickly. Hygiene adapts to reality rather than pretending to control it. Children learn this early. They watch how adults pause briefly to rub their hands with sand, then continue working. The action is quiet and unremarkable. Hand care becomes part of the movement rather than a separate ritual. This integration ensures consistency. Practices that interrupt work tend to be skipped. Those that fit between actions persist. Hand hygiene survives because it asks for seconds, not minutes. The skin adapts to this system. It thickens slightly where needed. Cracks heal when moisture is controlled. Sensitivity decreases. The hands become resilient rather than fragile. There is no expectation of softness. Comfort is defined by function. Hands that do not sting, split, or inflame are considered healthy. Appearance is irrelevant. Dry methods also reduce transmission. Moist hands pass residue easily. Dry hands release less. Contact becomes safer by default. Hygiene extends beyond the individual to those nearby. The environment reinforces this lesson. Dust is constant. Wind carries particles everywhere. Trying to keep hands pristine would fail. Keeping them dry succeeds. This success builds trust. Over time, the method becomes instinctive. There is no debate. There is an observation. When infections remain rare, the practice is affirmed. Modern habits often associate cleanliness with lather and scent. In the Sahara, these signals are absent. Cleanliness is confirmed through outcome. Hands remain usable. Food remains safe. Illness does not spread. The absence of water also preserves skin integrity. Frequent washing would strip oils and create micro-injuries. Dry care avoids this cycle. The skin maintains its barrier. This barrier matters. Hands are the body's primary interface with the world. Protecting them protects everything else. Hygiene here supports survival directly. The system remains flexible. Sand when available, ash when needed, herbal powder when preferred. No single material dominates. The principle remains constant. Remove moisture, reduce oil, avoid buildup. This flexibility allows hand hygiene to persist under changing conditions. Travel, work, rest. The method adapts without breaking. There is also restraint. Overuse of any material would irritate the skin. Light application preserves balance. The hands respond well to moderation. Moderation defines desert hygiene. Excess creates problems. Absence creates vulnerability. Balance sustains. As with other practices, this one remains quiet. There is no instruction, no emphasis. It is done because it works. Over generations, small refinements appear. Different powders, different clothes. The core remains unchanged. Dryness protects. This protection extends to food preparation. Hands are cleaned through sand and ash to handle ingredients safely. The risk of contamination remains low. Meals proceed without fear. The desert demands such reliability. Mistakes are costly. Methods that fail are abandoned. Hand hygiene without water persists because it succeeds. This success is measured by continuity. Work continues. Health remains stable. Life does not pause. As hands remain safe through these methods, another responsibility becomes visible. Certain natural cycles require additional care, passed quietly from one generation to the next. Hand hygiene without water relies on dryness to limit transfer and reduce risk. Sand, ash, and gentle wiping keep hands functional through constant use. Beyond this steady routine, attention turns toward how care is maintained during monthly bodily cycles. Menstrual hygiene in the Sahara is managed without manufactured products, without disposables, and without water-based routines. It relies instead on reuse, dryness, sunlight, and knowledge passed carefully from one generation to the next. What might appear fragile from the outside proves stable under constant heat and scarcity. Reusable cloths form the center of this care. They are cut from soft fabric that will not irritate the skin during long wear. Thickness is adjusted by layering rather than padding. The aim is absorption without bulk. Comfort depends on breathability rather than concealment. These cloths are changed according to condition rather than schedule. Attention remains on moisture level and skin response. Frequent changes prevent saturation. Dryness remains the priority. Moisture left against the body invites irritation and odor. Dry fabric maintains balance. After use, cloths are handled carefully. Blood is removed through minimal rinsing, only when clean water is available. More often, cloths are dried immediately in sunlight. Heat and light break down residue and prevent odor from setting. Sun exposure becomes the primary method of maintenance. Sunlight also provides reassurance. Fabric left in open air dries fully and quickly. Any lingering moisture disappears. The cloth returns light, soft, and ready for reuse. This cycle repeats throughout the menstrual period without interruption. There is no attempt to hide this process. Cloths are dried openly. The practice carries no secrecy. Practicality replaces shame. Hygiene is treated as a necessary routine rather than a private burden. The absence of industrial products removes dependence. There are no shortages to fear, no waste to manage, no costs to absorb. Care remains within reach regardless of circumstance. This reliability matters under unpredictable conditions. The skin benefits from this simplicity. Without synthetic materials or chemical treatments, irritation decreases. Breathable fabric allows airflow. Heat dissipates rather than trapping moisture. The body remains calmer. Knowledge plays a crucial role. Girls learn through observation long before they experience menstruation themselves. They watch how cloths are prepared, changed, and dried. There is no sudden transition. Familiarity builds gradually. This transmission of experience ensures continuity. Advice is practical rather than instructional. Elders share what works. Methods are adjusted through experience rather than theory. The practice evolves slowly, guided by outcome. Discomfort is addressed early. If irritation appears, fabric is changed. If heat increases, layers are reduced. Care remains responsive. This responsiveness prevents escalation into infection or pain. Movement continues during menstruation. There is no expectation of withdrawal from daily tasks. Hygiene supports activity rather than limiting it. Cloths are designed to stay in place under movement without friction. Clothing choices support this system. Loose garments reduce pressure and allow air to circulate. Tight clothing would trap heat and moisture, undermining care. Fabric becomes part of the hygienic environment. The absence of water-based washing reduces risk. Contaminated water would introduce danger during a vulnerable time. Dry methods avoid this entirely. Risk is managed through exclusion rather than addition. This approach also reduces waste. Cloths are reused until worn, then replaced. Nothing is discarded daily. The environment remains unaffected. Hygiene aligns with sustainability by necessity rather than ideology. Psychological comfort emerges from familiarity. When care methods are known and reliable, anxiety decreases. The body responds positively to calm routines. Stress does not compound physical discomfort. The practice also reinforces autonomy. Care remains in the hands of the individual, rather than dependent on supply. This autonomy supports confidence and resilience. Over time, expectations shift. Menstruation is treated as a regular bodily cycle rather than a disruption. Hygiene adapts smoothly. Life continues without pause. Modern assumptions often equate progress with disposables. In the Sahara, disposables would create vulnerability. Reuse creates stability. What can be maintained locally endures. The cloths themselves age gently. Sun exposure softens fibers. Repeated use improves comfort. Familiarity grows. Each cloth becomes suited to the body it serves. This suitability matters. Ill-fitting solutions cause friction. Tailored methods support endurance. Hygiene becomes personal rather than standardized. The system also allows variation. Different families favor different fabrics. Some prefer thicker layers at night. Others adjust during travel. Flexibility ensures adoption across conditions. There is no claim that this method is ideal for all environments. It functions because it aligns with heat, dryness, and scarcity. Suitability defines success. The desert reinforces this lesson constantly. Practices survive because they solve real problems. Menstrual hygiene without disposables persists because it works. The absence of odor confirms effectiveness. Dryness prevents bacterial growth. Sunlight neutralizes residue. The body remains stable. This stability supports dignity. Care is taken without fuss. There is no need to hide or explain. Hygiene remains practical and calm. As with other aspects of desert life, restraint proves protective. Excess intervention would introduce risk. Minimal care maintains balance. The result is continuity. Generation after generation, the same principles hold. Dry fabric, sunlight, attention. These elements combine into a system that endures. Menstrual hygiene here does not rely on innovation. It relies on alignment with environment. This alignment sustains life quietly. As this cycle remains supported without disruption, attention moves again. Children are taught early how to keep clean without water. Learning begins long before necessity arises. Menstrual hygiene in the Sahara relies on reusable cloth, dryness, and sunlight rather than disposables. Knowledge passed through generations keeps care stable under heat and scarcity. Beyond this quiet continuity, attention shifts toward how children learn cleanliness without relying on water. Cleanliness in the Sahara is not introduced suddenly when necessity appears. It is taught slowly, quietly, from early childhood. Long before children understand scarcity, they learn habits shaped by it. These habits do not feel restrictive, they feel normal. Children observe adults before they are instructed. They watch how bodies are wiped instead of washed, how hands are rubbed with sand, how mouths are cleaned with twigs rather than paste. No explanation is given at first. Observation builds familiarity. Familiarity becomes acceptance. The first lesson involves the body. Children learn to wipe their skin gently using a clean ash or dry cloth. The motion is slow and light. There is no scrubbing. The purpose is to remove moisture and residue without disturbing the skin. Adults demonstrate through their own actions rather than commands. Ash is introduced carefully. Children are shown how to choose fine, clean residue from trusted fires. They learn to test it between fingers, to feel its softness, to avoid sharp particles. This sensory learning builds trust. The material no longer feels foreign. Wiping becomes routine, after play, after movement, before rest. The action takes moments. It does not interrupt activity. Hygiene blends into daily rhythm rather than standing apart from it. The second lesson involves the mouth. Children are given small twigs and shown how to soften one end. They learn to brush gently, guided by feeling rather than instruction. There is no expectation of foam or flavor. Cleanliness is measured by comfort, not sensation. This method removes dependence early. Children do not learn to associate oral care with supplies that may disappear. They associate it with simple actions always within reach. This association lasts. Water is deliberately withheld, except when truly necessary. This is not punishment, it is preparation. Children learn that water has priority. Drinking comes first. Cooking follows. Washing remains optional and rare. This restraint builds understanding rather than frustration. When water is finally used, it carries meaning. Children learn to respect it rather than expect it. Hygiene adapts around this respect. Knowledge passes through repetition rather than explanation. Children learn when to wipe, when to air, and when to leave skin alone. They notice how irritation fades when moisture is controlled. The body teaches as much as adults do. There is no fear attached to cleanliness. Practices are calm and matter of fact. This calm reduces resistance. Children do not feel corrected. They feel included. Mistakes are allowed. A child may use too much ash. Skin may feel dry. Adults adjust quietly. There is no reprimand. The method refines itself through experience. This gradual teaching ensures durability. Habits learned under pressure rarely last. Habits learned as normal behavior persist. The absence of water-based routines also prevents dependency. Children raised without frequent washing do not crave it. Their bodies adapt early. Skin becomes resilient. Sweat patterns stabilize. Odor remains manageable. This adaptation supports confidence. Children trust their bodies. They do not fear discomfort at the first sign of heat or dust. Hygiene becomes a tool for stability rather than control. Community reinforces these lessons. Children see peers practicing the same methods. There is no sense of difference. Shared habits become culture. The environment itself participates. Heat teaches quickly. Dust gives immediate feedback. When methods fail, discomfort appears. When they succeed, comfort returns. Learning accelerates. Adults remain attentive without hovering. Guidance is offered through example. Children absorb details gradually. This patience respects growth. The absence of water also protects children from risk. Contaminated water would introduce danger. Dry methods avoid this entirely. Safety becomes part of hygiene rather than separate from it. Clothing supports learning. Loose garments allow airflow. Children feel the difference between covered and exposed skin. Experience replaces explanation. Over time, children internalize priorities. Cleanliness supports health. Health supports movement. Movement supports life. Each lesson connects naturally. There is no formal transition into adulthood hygiene. Children simply continue what they have always done. Consistency replaces instruction. This continuity preserves knowledge across generations. Elders teach without lecturing. Children learn without questioning. Practices survive because they fit life rather than challenge it. The desert favors such learning. Anything complex fails. Anything simple endures. Teaching cleanliness without water becomes part of identity. It is not framed as a survival skill. It is framed as living. This framing matters. Children grow without feeling deprived. They grow feeling capable. Capability builds resilience. Resilience supports adaptation. Adaptation ensures survival. As children mature, they carry these habits forward naturally. They teach the next generation in the same way. Observation first, explanation later. This cycle remains unbroken because it does not depend on memory or instruction manuals. It depends on living bodies responding to the environment. The result is a population that remains clean enough, healthy enough, and confident enough without relying on scarce resources. Cleanliness here does not aim for perfection. It aims for balance. Children learn this early. Balance remains the central lesson. Too much intervention harms. Too little invites problems. Moderation sustains. This moderation becomes instinctive. It guides behavior without thought. The desert does not forgive waste. Children learn this gently. Hygiene becomes a reflection of respect rather than fear. As these lessons settle early, the community prepares for times when resources grow even scarcer. Knowledge becomes protection. Children in the Sahara learn cleanliness through habit, observation, and restraint rather than instruction. Dry methods become normal long before scarcity must be explained. From this early discipline, a final understanding emerges about who will guide others when water grows rare everywhere. The world often believes that progress moves in only one direction: more water, more comfort, more products, more layers of convenience placed between the body and the environment. In many modern places, cleanliness has become inseparable from abundance. Running taps, scented soap, disposable wipes, bottled sprays, and constant replacement are treated as proof that life is safe and ordered. Cleanliness is measured by how much can be rinsed away. Far from that idea, under the sky of the Sahara, a quieter understanding of hygiene has existed for generations. Here, care was built around limits. It grew from necessity, not preference, and it stayed because it worked. In the desert, hygiene was never designed to feel luxurious. It was designed to keep the body stable. Water was never treated as an enemy, but it was never treated as cheap. It had a strict place. Drinking came first, because thirst can kill. Cooking came after, because food must be safe. Washing was rare and often avoided, because poor water can harm more than dust. Cleanliness adapted to that order rather than competing with it, and that adaptation became routine. Sand became a tool instead of a nuisance. Fine, dry grains rubbed across, skin lifted sweat and oil without flooding the body. Ash became a cleanser instead of leftover waste. Used gently, it absorbed moisture and reduced the slick layer that holds dirt. Sunlight became a kind of guardian. Fabrics, cloths, and tools laid in open heat dried fast, stayed lighter, and carried less risk than anything kept damp. Clothing became a barrier that reduced sweat, reduced friction, and reduced smell by keeping skin shaded and reducing direct contact with dust. There were also small comforts that required almost no water. A few herbs simmered in a small pot could create a lightly scented liquid captured from steam, then used in drops, not in buckets. A face could be wiped, not washed. A collar could be refreshed. The point was never to imitate a full bath, but to restore steadiness and ease the mind without draining a resource that might be needed to drink tomorrow. Mouthcare followed the same logic. A twig softened at one end could clean teeth and gums through simple friction and plant fibers. Breath could be steadied with seeds or bark chewed slowly. No foam was required. No sink was required. The habit was small, repeatable, and always available, which matters more than anything that depends on a supply that might vanish. From the outside, these methods can sound severe, even impossible. Many people assume that without water, the body must become filthy. Yet the desert teaches a different lesson. Moisture is the true invitation for many problems. When dampness stays on skin, bacteria multiply faster, irritation grows, and small wounds remain open longer. When skin stays dry, many threats lose strength. Cuts close, scratches settle, rashes become less common. Odor softens, not because scent is erased, but because sweat evaporates quickly and does not linger. Over time, the body adapts. Skin learns to keep its protective layer. Sweat becomes more even. The sense of what clean feels like changes. Clean becomes the absence of burning, itching, and infection, not a strong perfume or a wet shine. This shift is not a theory. It is the result of living long days under heat and learning what keeps the body functional without wasting what keeps the body alive. Hands receive special attention because they touch everything. Sand, ash, and dry cloth are used to remove oil and residue. The aim is control, not perfection. Dry hands transfer less grime and carry less risk into food. Grease is avoided because it traps dust and makes cleaning harder. The routine is quick, quiet, and repeated whenever needed, guided by touch and comfort rather than by a clock. Children learn these habits early through observation. They see adults wipe the body lightly with a cloth or ash. They see mouths cleaned with twigs rather than paste. They see hands rubbed with sand, then wiped dry, then used to prepare food. Water is saved without drama. Because these routines are normal from the start, children do not feel deprived. They feel capable. Hygiene becomes a quiet skill, folded into daily life, the way walking and eating are folded into daily life. Women manage menstruation with reusable cloth, sunlight, and steady attention. There is no dependence on factory goods, no daily waste, and no fear of supplies running out. Knowledge passes from elders to girls in practical details. How to change clothes before they get wet, how to dry them fully, how to protect the skin, and how to notice irritation early. Care remains personal, calm, and consistent, shaped by the same principle that guides everything else. Keep the body dry enough to stay safe. None of this is performed to impress anyone. There is no pride in hardship. There is only the plain logic of what keeps life steady. The desert does not reward excess. It rewards methods that ask for little and deliver enough. Anything that consumes water without protecting health is slowly discarded. Anything that reduces harm becomes routine, then culture, then identity. As the wider world faces hotter seasons, stressed water systems, and rising scarcity, these desert habits begin to look less distant. The Sahara does not offer slogans or promises. It simply demonstrates a relationship with resources that is honest. It reminds us that comfort is not the same as safety, and that safety can come from restraint, from patience, and from habits that fit the environment instead of fighting it. This ending is not a demand to copy desert life. It is an invitation to notice how adaptable humans can be when the environment requires it. It is also a reminder that the simplest methods are often the hardest to respect, because they do not feel modern and they do not feel glamorous. Yet they can protect the body, conserve what is precious, and keep routines steady under pressure. Now, let the story settle. Imagine the desert after sunset, when heat slowly releases from stone and sand. Movement grows quieter. Cloth hangs in the open air and dries without effort. The body rests, not because everything is easy, but because balance has been maintained. The mind becomes calmer when it knows that enough has been done. Let your breathing slow. Let your shoulders soften. There is nothing more to solve tonight. The desert teaches that care can be calm, that cleanliness can be quiet, and that survival often depends on doing less, but doing it consistently, day after day, without panic. Good night.